institution to the point where they cannot take action. Then you realize that politicians have to come up and now start dealing with the issues.
That conversation has to die. Our politicians do not like the hard stuff. We must insist on the path of doing things right, whether popular or unpopular.
Money changes hands. That is a fact. If you have political goodwill at the highest top, like in Rwanda, then corruption will be an issue of the past. If you don't have political goodwill at the top, we will pass laws, we will amend laws, we will continue passing laws and re-amending laws, and nothing will happen.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
The following takes place from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. every weekday on SpiceFM.
He himself actually has admitted that he bribed members of parliament, so...
he admitted that he bribed members of parliament?
Well, when he said...
The government.
Yeah, when he said that he gave the 10 million was for what?
We're always quick to point faults in somebody else before you look at your own faults as a person.
If it was Kanu's day, hii amuka naye leo, ungekuwa umeenda bali sana hii. So and we must celebrate you.
There are 600 million people now globally estimated to be living with diabetes in the world. So it is a major health problem. It's the largest single disease rising pandemic that we're dealing with right now.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
One of the things that are in our country is negative ethnicity. You find you as a state of, instead of thinking as a Kenyan, you think like a tribal person.
Let me tell you something. The biggest problem we have had in this country is a leadership deficit. There is nothing that you are going to do in the process of change if you are not a risk taker. So you really have to pursue your vision to a logical conclusion and even be ready to step on people's toes.
When it comes to the economy, you can run away with it. They say statistics are like bikinis. They reveal a lot, but they conceal the vitals. And so government people would throw statistics at you and tell you they're revealing a lot of information to you, but it's really concealing the real vitals.
We need to get out of that, because when we want to grow our democracy, one basic thing that really requires to be understood by the political class, by all of us, is institutions are critical.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
The following takes place from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. every weekday on SpiceFM.
We look at the utterances of leaders who are aligned to broad-based, who were initially in ODM. We thought they stand for something. Now they've been exposed.
Because we are a third world country, we are poor. And not because we don't have resources, but we have been robbed senseless.
Look at the wasteful expenditure. Look at how large government lives. And we've said this is something that can be controlled. It happens in many other countries.
Internally, we used to stand and tell him, boss, hii kitu ni mbaya. And you'd say, now he doesn't, let me tell you, you saw the other parliamentary group meeting, people went there, sat, listened, looked at him, there was no plenary, left.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
Good morning, and I love your show.
Thank you.
Having come from a Kikuyu radio background, I migrated to Spice because of the content.
I was born in a slum, but somehow I got a break in life. So sometimes when you see the sweating coming out because of the passion and whatever it is, behind the noise, there are people. And we share the same umbilical cord. It shouldn't be like that.
I am so disappointed. We used to tell Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga that he's doing police of conmanship. And even President Uhuru Kenyatta, serikali hii ndio iko na conmanship ya hali ya juu. You cannot promise people that you reduce tax, then you double.
In politics, there is the issue of trust. For you to turn around and then stab the same people who gave you that trust, there is no other level of dishonesty. Imabo, utaona dunia tu.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. The following takes place from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. every weekday on SpiceFM.
SRC's mandate is constitutional. It's not an advice. It's actually something you must do.
Must do.
Like now you abandon, of course, the narrative of Wheelbarrow, Mutomjengo, Mamamboga, and all those, that rosy narrative.
Your expenditure is 3.3 trillion, and you're collecting only 2.5. Out of that 2.5, you're spending 1.8 trillion to service loans and so forth.
That the CDF kit, it's itself a symptom of corruption.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
In this country, 6 families and 8,000 Kenyans control 90% of the GDP. We are not a country. We are a plantation. We work for Ruto.
When you're telling the judges court orders are papers or they will not obey court orders, they're sitting and you're seeking orders from them. So how are they supposed to interpret it? Isn't it an oxymoron?
When you see a judiciary that seems to be under some control somewhere, you start questioning. We have very powerful governors, but they don't use their offices to serve the people.
If you are not shameful to do what you are doing, why should we protect you?
I'm human. Everybody's human. So when you're told, kuja tuongee, I mean, you'd be a fool to say, stagi kuongea. Conversations have to be had, you know?
People in leadership should only go into leadership if they are ready and willing to change the lot of the people.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
If we just gloss over issues and hope that time heals, then we may find that in generations to come, we might be back at the same situation. And the whole thing is born of stolen elections.
Spice.
When it comes to the decisions you make, you must be independent. There's no way you can allow one institution to dictate to you how you're going to conduct your operations, how you're going to decide cases. It's a no.
When you weaken the institution to the point where they cannot take action, then you realize that politicians have to come up and now start dealing with the issues.
That conversation has to die. Our politicians do not like the hard stuff. We must insist on the path of doing things right, whether popular or unpopular.
Money changes hands. That is a fact. If you have political goodwill at the highest top, like in Rwanda, then corruption will be an issue of the past. If you don't have political goodwill at the top, we will pass laws, we will amend laws, we will continue passing laws and re-amending laws, and nothing will happen.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
The following takes place from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. every weekday on SpiceFM.
You have land, Dennis. Yeah. Okay, your own land. You use your own money to build it, and then you sell it to yourself.
But we don't want foreign troops on Kenyan soil.
But surely it goes a little bit deeper. This is it. If you find the tree is withering, then you call the person who is managing that tree. Come around. Yeah, Why don't tell me what is first of all, what's the problem? Yes, what is the problem there?
How do we expect ourselves to move forward as a country?
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Good morning, and I love your show.
Thank you.
Having come from a Kikuyu radio background, I migrated to Spice because of the content.
I was born in a slum, but somehow I got a break in life. So sometimes when you see the sweating coming out because of the passion and whatever it is, behind the noise, there are people. And we share the same umbilical cord.
It shouldn't be like that. I am so disappointed. We used to tell Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga that he's doing police of conmanship. And even President Uhuru Kenyatta, serikali hii ndio iko na conmanship ya hali ya juu. You cannot promise people that you reduce tax, then you double.
In politics, there is the issue of trust. For you to turn around and then stab the same people who gave you that trust, there is no other level of dishonesty. Imabo, utaona dunia tu.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Good morning and many thanks for watching. It is on KTN, it is Spice FM, and we are coming to you live today. It is mimi ndio niko hapa kwa kiti. Ndu is not in today, but we are here together with Dennis Okari on my right. Niaje?
Fiti sana.
Uliamkaje?
Mbaya.
I know.
Mbona umetukaribisha KTN?
I know KTN, but see, yote is the same thing. It's one and the same thing.
Before you talk kwa kichwa.
It will take time. Zoea. But you're good?
I'm good. How are you this morning?
Good this morning. Niko salama sana.
Wewe, msimu wa sote meisha. It's hot now.
No, but in the mornings are cold. Mornings are cold. Yeah, I live close to Ngong Forest, so uwezo kaelewa, si ndio?
Watu wa miti.
Tunatingiza miti pole pole.
Me, I'm good. How's your you slept like what? 2 hours?
No, like around 5.
5 hours?
5, yeah, I think. 4 something, yeah.
I did 4. I thought you were here last night.
Yeah, I was.
Okay.
Yeah, I left
straight to bed.
Sukuchas, the only thing I did not go straight to bed. I got straight to the shower first before bed.
Right, you want to give us the details?
No,
Before
that's the only detail. That's the only detail for this morning, all right? Okay. But you're equally joined by Josphat Kamanya as our guest host this morning. How are you, sir?
I'm fine, thank you.
I like your sweater.
Up. Thank you.
I like your sweater. Kusalama? Been a while.
It's been a minute.
How's it been?
It's been busy, noisy, chaotic.
Noisy and chaotic is good. Yeah, but even as we continue with the conversations this morning, how about we just go about some of the conversations we shall be having this morning. And at 7 a.m., we'll be having Angela Minai, who is the Programs Officer, Digital Rights and Policy at Article 19, Eastern Africa. And we shall be having a discussion on offline elections, online repercussions. What next, Tanzania? We just come from that election and we know what happened in Tanzania. President Samia Suluhu has promised to unite the country and move forward. How exactly is she going to be doing that? Tundu Lissu, will we see another broad-based handshake in Tanzania? Interesting times, interesting days to come. Also, many say it is an opportunity for Tanzania to sit down and relook perhaps at its laws, because as we speak right now, what the IEBC of Tanzania, for us to understand, once it makes the decision, calls it out, that's it.
It's final.
You can't challenge that in court. So just what next, Tanzania? And at 8 a.m. we shall be having George Kithi, who is a lawyer, and Abigail Zuena, real estate policy consultant. And here it's all about the land question, the Land Amendment Act of 2025. What exactly does this mean to stakeholders in this space? How do they move forward? Where does the National Land Commission lie in this new amendment? Remember also the controversy surrounding when President William Ruto signed this amendment into now an act of parliament. Just what exactly does it mean to all of us? And at 9 a.m. we shall be having Dr. Laxmana Kipto, who is a security advisor and development expert, and we shall be having a conversation on fight against money laundering and terror financing. And we talk about terror financing, it is all about through the non-governmental organizations, how are they being used to launder money, and also terrorism financing. Just how exactly is the government going around to address this problem, and how also the non-governmental organizations will come through and ensure that they are not being used as a vehicle for money laundering and funding terrorism across the world, and especially in the country. Those are the conversations that we shall be having this morning. But before tuendelee, there is the aspect that today we are in Mauritania. Mauritania, beautiful country that continues to, is rich in iron ore, is rich in copper, there is gold and oil, there is also fish. These are some of the industries that continue to push the country's economy. But from this beautiful country that many say has a lot of potential, has a lot of, from extractive economy, we get the proverb this morning. And the proverb we get from Mauritania is, he who goes up must come down. He who goes up must come down. Josphat, again, siku ya kwanza, karibu. How would you interpret that?
Well, in the wisdom of in the spirit of Mauritania, I think the West,
yes,
that's one of the Western, one of our African Western countries. He who goes up must come down. I think it's about transition. Nothing is permanent. So we are all in some of a form of a transition. Like I think I would equate that to a local popular saying where we say power is transient. You know, so what you do when you're at the top, careful, because when you descend, it might catch up to you. So he who goes up must come down. Is that nothing is permanent. For me, it's about transition and transiency of life and the processes we go through in life. It could be just holding a position or just you growing up into being a different person. It's about change. But that we must be careful, because at some point where you left, you may find yourself wanting to go through the same bridge. So don't burn bridges. You know, there's a famous Jamaican musician. I'm forgetting his name. He says, and he did a song with Shaggy, It Will Come. He says, don't burn bridges, you know, because sometimes you'll wish you did not burn them on your way back, on your way down. Yeah.
Okari. Preach, brother.
Wow.
Give it to us.
No, I would just let it go beyond what is mentioned. For me, the proverb is, it's just that reminder that, you know, nothing is permanent. And it also levels everyone to the place of humility. Speaks of, you know, individuals, like today you'll wake up poor, tomorrow you'll be rich. Somebody else will rise to a place of power and prominence. Somebody else will rise to a place of influence, success. But how you stay up there matters a lot, because one day it will all come down. And it also, like life generally, there is a day you're born, there is a day you will die. Okay? So, atujipige kifua namna gani, there is always that cycle. So it's more or less like a warning, like, look, what goes up must come down. So one day you're up, the next day you're down.
You're down.
Yeah. It's how you treat people when you're up that really matters.
That really matters.
Yeah.
It speaks to how you treat people, especially when you are in a position of influence, because that then gets to determine either if you're going to stay there and how long, or how soon you're coming down. You know, it's really difficult to build an empire, but it's really easy to bring it down, you know.
Very
so
easy.
it also speaks, if in industry, you know, when you're recording audio, there is the oscillation, right? Audio is never straight. It has to go up and down, and that is what creates a complete cycle or audio interface, you know. So you just look at it, and in terms of where you stress and what you do, it has to go up, it has to come down for it to make sense. Such is life. You know, there's one thing on what you've just said that my dad once told me, that the only time when a child is close to their parents is at that time when they are still in the womb. Once the child comes out, their journey towards self-independence starts. So every day with every birthday is another goodbye, dad, goodbye, mom, until a point when they are 18 and they're out of your house, they're having their own lives. And the more the days come, the farther they keep going.
And it's, you know, it's a very sad reality. I was actually having that conversation yesterday with my wife, and I was just telling her, look, this boy, there is a point where I missed just, you take him, hold him, and he's not moving. You watch your movie, you watch TV, they can't do anything. Now they are that age where shika kidogo hivi, they don't want to be held, they just want to run. The reality is, it's never coming back. He's gone.
This is gone.
He's gone.
And you know, there's it's not a bad thing, because they say the best, well, best is relative, but the best kind of parenting is to, our kids should grow to be independent, not to want us, not to need us. So that independence should be progress for them advancing. And if that is happening, because again, you don't want to end up with kids being dependent around you, either emotionally or otherwise. So the advancement of the independence means you're doing a good job. We are doing good jobs.
We are doing good jobs,
So you know, there's that moment when you feel like, You just want to hug them. Stay for 5 minutes. I've missed you. Stay. But then they're like 30 seconds. They're done. They just want you to go away, and it hits you like, okay, now they don't need you anymore.
Yeah, and that is the cycle of life. So let's see how our guests will be interpreting that. But let's say hi to those who are listening. As Karibu Sana to Spice FM, Kenya's biggest conversation, the Situation Room, as we continue to bring you conversations that matter, conversations that change the discourse in the, not just in the country but across the world. And Peter Kiari, good morning from Mombasa. You can always wait for the perfect time. You cannot always wait for the perfect time. Sometimes you must dare to jump. That is true. Agola, bonjour toi. Good morning to you. Good morning from Mombasa. Robert Mbogo is tuned in. Agutu Gambo, good morning to Team Kubwa, Team Spice. Good morning to you. And today is Aseto. Okari.
Yes.
There's a question, and Kamanya now, because now you're sitting there.
Wow.
There's a question. Is the struggle with ODM clearly unfolding, expressed through open displays of power, influence, leadership, and financial muscle? That is a question. Don Sabwa.
Okay, so Don Sabwa, my answer is very simple, because every time we keep talking to anyone from ODM, they say, Baba said, play the last clip. So I'll just take you to the last clip of Baba.
Yeah.
Yes, that should answer you.
Kamanya.
Well, as Don Saba is asking a pertinent question, because you've seen a lot of sentiment, people saying, I heard, I was called, they said, he said, he told me, and everybody reporting something different. And alleging to be reporting verbatim. So you wonder who really was told what. But I think it is expected, because I think the late Right Honorable Dinga was such a huge embodiment, and everybody would want to
be associated with him.
So we wait and see.
Good morning, Mungare. Lillian Mungare, good morning, Spice team. Tuned from Kikambala, Karibu Sana. Erica Ward, good morning, guys. Good morning to you. Daudi Lubale, good morning, wonderful family. Good morning, TSR family. DND. Today, N is not here. It is DNT. If she is still abstaining from sugar, Ndu, we'll answer you when she's back. And Bwangi Juma, good morning, Spice FM family. How are you all this blessed Thursday? Tuko salama, Bwangi Juma. And Pan-African Kenyan, good morning from Nairobi. Good morning to you. Kings and friends, good morning, Spice FM family. Always good vibes tuning in this morning. Always nice having you around. Good morning to you. And a nation grows stronger when its people choose unity, kindness, and hard work over blame. Let's each play our part. Small steps, big change. I agree with you. Sarah Kilondo, good morning, Team Spice. Mwamka ata. Tumeamka salama, tuko hapa. Mama J, good morning. The interview yesterday was a sobering reality that we don't have the caliber of leaders that can propel us to prosperity. Tanzania should be the least of our worries. One would say, yes, let's deal with our problems. Isakale, morning Spices. Singaporean president told me that Kenya's future is bright, just not between 5 and 10 p.m. Hoping for brighter days. What happens between 5 and 10 p.m.? Isakale, tell us. And blessed day ahead, Spice Farm. Keep the energy high. We will do that, kings and friends. And Henry Odero, good morning from Dar. We went to work yesterday. Things are improving. That is good news to hear, Henry. Tell us more on how the situation is in Tanzania. Kisa Daniel, good morning, Spice. Good morning to you. David Mangera, good morning, DND. Have a lovely day. Today is DNJ. DNJ. Yes, DNJ. Sisi ndio tuko leo. And Ndu, Okari, and OT. Who is OT? How are you? We are listening. Good job. The name Ndu in my Kamba language means an impact. So you guys are having a big impact on our lives. Have a beautiful day. Have a beautiful too as well, Excellent Zomo. And Tibbs Muge, good morning, Spice team. I have a book recommendation, The Tragedy of Great Power Politics by John J. Mashmina.
The tragedy of?
The tragedy of power. Yes, the tragedy of great power politics. Yes, Tibbs Muge, tutatafute kitabu. Sheila Masasabi, good morning, Spice family. Another day to delve deeper and make sense of what truly is ailing our nation. Perhaps that is the conversation, a daily concern for all Kenyans. And Yusuf Mohammed, good morning, Spice FM family. Where's Ndu Oko? Ndu is coming soon. Ameenda kupumzika kidogo. Josh Willy, habari ya asubuhi. Dr. Van Vick, good morning, tuning from Chuda, Mombasa. Isa Kale, today it's a boys to men affair. Kabisa. Sisi ndio tuko. Joseph Okondo, good morning, SpiceFM team tuned in from Chuda, Mombasa. Ndu, the Iroko tree originated from which tribe or region in Nigeria? The Igbos, Hausa, or Yorubas, etc. I think when Ndu comes, that's the first question we'll ask.
Yes.
The Iroko tree comes from where? You know, in Kenya, one would equate that to the Mugumo tree. Where does it equate from, or where does it make sense, right? And Pan-African Kenya. So Leon Dua kwa MIA ameenda kupumzika. You know, the body needs some refreshing as well. And morning, Team Spice, wishing my brother Jared Bosira, currently at MTRH, a quick recovery. Quick recovery to your brother. We wish him quick recovery. Joshua Mulwa, good morning, Spice FM team from Upper Hill. Ruth WM, good morning from Kiambu. Good morning to you. We also have Ruth WM. At what point does EACC investigate major projects, e.g. road construction, affordable housing, markets, etc., pesa za umma? When do they investigate that, Okari?
When they have the time.
When they have the time.
Yeah.
Kamanya, when do they investigate?
When it suits them.
Wait. Hamna chills leo?
Well, it's a Thursday.
Okay. Great, good morning, Great Spice FM team. It's demeaning, mentally self-colonizing for African country leaders, including Kenya, to pronounce to colonizers the minerals they've themselves, when they themselves do that. Yes, indeed, perhaps one would say that the minerals in Africa, if only one would seed, process them, add value on it, then sell it, the continent Africa would get more from the minerals that we have, because it is said the world actually runs from African resources.
Yes.
If only African leaders would know that and work on it. No?
And you saw even the latest tiff between China and the Americans about the rare minerals. So just imagine if Africa has more than China, how well can we transform our economy as a continent? If only.
Is the question.
Is
the question. Yeah. And Mark Mwangi, good morning. Also, people looking forward to great conversation. Let's hope it boils nicely without raising voices. Leon Dua amefanya ile kitu, hajafanya ile kitu. She's just taking a rest. And Carol Nyambura, good morning everyone. Nawapenda sana, wishing you a blessed day. Tunakupenda pia, have a great one. And Nikita, good morning from Kisumu. Habari ya Dala, good morning to you. Michelle, with guests like Kamanya, the show will be great. Yes, indeed. Kamanya, watu wanakupenda. Gentlemen, wacheni upuzi, tunataka a new airport. That's what he said. The airport is what we need, and a new airport we shall do what? We shall get. And President said we should expect power rationing in the evenings. You know, yesterday I saw that Kenya has just hit its peak in terms of power demand. So that means industrialization has gone up, and power companies in the country are working to see how they're going to produce even more. So we're producing more power. That means industrialization is up. Any new factories you've seen? Any new factories?
Yeah, I've not seen any new factory anywhere.
Kamanya?
And yet load shedding is loading?
Load shedding is loading because these factories didn't produce.
Where?
There's a lot to that, eh? We shall find out what exactly they're saying. And Gava levied 7 shilling securitization funds on fuel to generate 104 billion shillings to jumpstart stalled road projects. They have paid the projects fully, but contractors haven't done or finished them. Let's be shown roads paid. Yes, indeed. Morning, Dennis and Spice family. Good morning to you, Jimmy Munothi. Sarah Kilonzo, I hope ICC will work with speed to check on Tanzania issue. It's worrying. We agree. And morning from Dago Wanyonyi John and Mark Mwangi, Average Minds Ndio Tuko. Wesamwe Ndio Uko and Pan-African Kenyan Simsima, who's got the plans to zima stima. Lines, eh? And Paris Mudhoni, good morning, Spice, lovely people. Good morning to you and everybody else who's joining from across the world. Karibuni sana, and let's go straight to the papers today, and we start with Kenya's Bold newspaper. The Standard, help, we are dying. Mr. President, don't turn your back on us. Please save us as the world's deadliest war grinds on. Kenya's forgotten sons are bleeding on the Russian front lines, trapped by deceit and abandoned by diplomacy. President William Ruto and Prime Cabinet Secretary Musalia Mudavadi, who vowed swift action nearly 2 weeks ago, have gone silent as families drown in anguish, begging for news of their children. Now, here's a picture of John Kariuki with his wife Rehab Muthoni, parents of missing ex-KDF soldier Samuel Maina, who hold portrait of their 31-year-old son at their home in Kilimambogo, Kiambu County. Maina is reported to be in Russia and has been missing for several months. Now, below we also see images of a Russian soldier and foreign fighters, including Kenyans. One asks the question, just what is the government of Kenya doing to ensure that its citizens across the world are safe, and what exactly is the government doing to ensure that its citizens are back home? We go to page 2, relief for university students as staff sign return to work deal. And yesterday we saw our WASU Secretary General Constantine Matsonga and Education CS Julius Ogamba and other officials after signing the return to work formula in Nairobi. And Dons wamerudi class. Finally, you know. Starting Monday, we expect classes to resume as normal. But the monies that they were asking for will finally be paid in 2 tranches. One immediately, and the other tranche will be paid by July of 2026. A good thing, one would say. Let's just hope that the government sticks to the end of the bargain, because that's where the problem is.
There's these tranches and looking at the timelines are very, very tight.
Yeah,
very, very tight. It'll be interesting to see if they keep up to this. They keep up to this deal, because in the past that's what has happened. To Talipa, the first tranche this time. So kwanza nalipo, but ya pili shida.
Yeah, and I think that should also just be accompanied with monies that are meant to schools, capitation to be sent on time to ensure that the entire education system actually is good. And 5 arrested in cheating probe. State wants tougher bond terms. Now, at least 5 people have been arrested in Nairobi and other regions for allegedly impersonating candidates in the ongoing Kenya Certificate of Secondary Education examination. Cabinet Secretary Julius Ogamba yesterday condemned cheating, saying the government has enforced security at all centers. He warned that offenders will face severe jail term. Why do people find it necessary to cheat in exams? Is it the pressure that we have put upon ourselves that our kids, or is it the education system that people just have to pass?
Sometimes I think it's just how people are. Yeah, the character of human beings is very interesting. Even the Bible says the heart is deceitful above all things, who can know it? So you've prepared for all these years, then I think you start doubting yourself. You really want. I think it's just the pressure to pass the exams. But then when it comes to cheating, it's unataka tu upite mtihani, you know. And during our time, if given an opportunity, to be honest, ningeiba. It's just that tukiambiana tu kweli. If the invigilator left the room and you're a textbook somewhere, I'm telling you,
that says a lot about our education, no?
Yeah, it does. You know, we've been taught that the grades you get, they define you. You know, they kind of place you at some place in society, and they could set you on a path where you're either doomed to you're going to be successful or not, which is not the case, because we are able and talented differently. And then also remember there's a lot of factors that come into play during the examination period. So you may have been a very good performing student or pupil before the exam, but during that just 1-2 weeks, family dynamics, social dynamics could interfere with that. However, even my worry is not why people cheat. My worry is how easy it is. Because other than what you'd term as private candidates, everybody else sits for an exam in their respective classroom and school where the head teacher knows barely, almost all the students. So how does it get to that Dennis will sit for Dennis or for Kamanya in a classroom where the teacher knows this student is not a student here? It's not easy to place a replica of yourself with an index number and then they sit down and so Yeah, it begs.
I mean, it's an entire troubling situation in the education sector, and I think perhaps CBE is here to fix that. Let's just see in the coming days, in the coming years, how then the entire system will change, and how we'll start looking at what success is. You know, I don't talk about failures, what success is, because people are able to differently, people have different talents, and it's all about how we can build on that to have a holistic society, no?
But you know, the pressure is also not just on the students, it's also the school itself, like the teachers. I remember when I was doing my Form 4 exams, KCSE, there was a particular teacher who came, you know, during mock exams, it's like sets you up and prepares you for what's coming. And this teacher kept saying, you know, please go through this paper. It's very, very important. But then he kept repeating certain things, and he was basically trying to insinuate that hii ndio itakuja. And then so you have the pressure from head teachers who want their schools to perform better. There was that time when schools were ranked. So all the time you'll hear the number 1 school is this school, number 2 is this school. So head teachers are also under pressure, like, come on, because even the others, that's what they're doing. So that your school is ranked among the top, meaning that every parent will want their child to be
enroll there.
To be.
And you know, the mock exam used to be the official leakage.
Yes.
The exam.
I see what you just done there. And MPs put Education CS to task over ghost schools. So you remember Caspar and his cousins? So yesterday, the National Assembly put Education Cabinet Secretary Julius Ogamba to task to explain why monies have been disbursed to non-existent schools. We're talking about 1.1 billion shillings that was sent to non-existent schools, non-existent students, but money was spent. One asked the question, where was the government in terms of the education extension officers, district officers who always go to these schools to ensure that they do exist? So who slept on the job, and how are we fixing it? We need to see heads roll.
And this was just in this last financial year.
Yes.
And yet the WASU strike was for how much?
7.9 billion.
Yeah, so they got 3.5 and they agreed to go back to work. So if we lost 1.7, what happened the previous year?
In a single financial year.
You know, so it begs a lot of questions.
And the court affirmed the sacking of a man who cut down trees. Yesterday we had conversation about the importance of preserving trees and the environment. And here an employee who was sacked for cutting down tree has lost his bid to save his job. Nikata miti yangu, ishia home.
Wow.
It should be criminal, by the way.
It should be criminal.
But we've lifted the Mau ban.
That is a conversation.
That is a different criminality.
For another day.
You see, the law is applied differently. So, you've just said it. Let me not add anything to it. It depends.
Kamanya, you want to go through the Daily Nation?
Yes. Well, the same thing, education. You know, there's a shocker on the pronounced payment of a uniform by the CES Education, and teachers parents are jittery about it. Then it's scrapped off. You know, we had a system where it was been ranked. You had county schools who were paying a different figure, but now there seems to have been a revision of that, and there is a blanket payment of excess of 53,000. Schools are not ranked anymore by the category of county, sub-county. On that, I think it's on the pathways they'll be offering. So it'd be interesting to see, but the cost seems a bit punitive. We don't know how yet to manage that, because January is coming, the economy is not doing so well. So page 1 of the Daily Nation is talking about the school fees shocker for the parents. I think there'll be an uproar. It would be interesting to see what Kenyans say about that. You know, the same continues on page 2 of the Daily Nation. The WASU finally have agreed to go back to work. It would be nice. And I liked what the CS said, that there will be no extra cost for parents or students, and that they'll try to compress the curriculum to make sure they're able to go through.
You know, there's already an extra cost because remember, parents, especially for those who are paying for students who live off campus, have already paid their house rent.
Right.
You know, so now that they might have to be in school longer, that is an extra cost on parents. So it's not true that there will be no extra cost. If you look at it in a broader perspective, there is.
An extra
because
cost.
These kids have been eating, right? That is an extra cost.
And I also imagine they'll spend more time in the lecture halls to try and catch up with what they've missed out on.
Yeah.
Well, interesting to see. Page 7 talks of how Ruto party is dealing with ODM's blackmail. The current party leader of the ODM pronounced himself loudly that the irreducible minimum they'll be going for is the deputy president position. So Daily Nation is expounding on that on page 7, how that threatens the current deputy president, because ODM is seeking. So we'll see how that happens. I don't know whether it's happening today still, but Kalonzo, over 500 others to visit Raila grave. That is on page 6 of the Daily Nation. I think we continue to see a lot of people going that way, which is okay. Let people mourn and honor the late. But I think we should stop politicizing his passing.
Yeah, because you see now it has become now a political gimmick that anyone who wants to gain relevance or anyone who wants to get what now they perceive to be a nation, a Luo nation, or Raila supporters who are considered to be orphans right now, must go to Raila Odinga's burial site, you know, as a political gimmick, as a political game, not necessarily because they want to do it. So it is all about let's stop politicking, honor the man, and let's get back to business.
Yeah, and on the international front, page 27 of the Daily Nation talks of violence may intensify in Sudan's north Darfur. UN is warning because there's a lot of happening there. And yeah, sometimes it's wanting to see how late an intervention comes through. The same talks about Zimbabwe loans ARVs to Botswana. There seems to be a health crisis, a supply of equipment and medication around Botswana. But again, we are hoping Botswana will revamp. But the fact that they are getting loans from Zimbabwe, that's a bit ironical.
I just see what you did there.
But we see how that plays out. Every life needs to be saved.
Okari?
Okay, let's look at the Star. So many stories here. Okay, so the Star headline: proposed law to ban sale of embryos and surrogacy fees. It will now be illegal to advertise surrogacy services or import genetic material. I'll go into the details of that story on page 2, but still on the front page, there's a picture of National Treasury CS John Badi and how pay for civil servants is training development. So there's the growing public wage bill, which is emerging as, well, is it emerging or we've always known this? One of the biggest threats to economic stability, and it's consuming a large share of national revenue. Then there's a story down there. Parents of Down syndrome kids call for more special schools. So let's just get into a bit of detail on this. So MPs move to ban paid surrogacy new bill. So there's a debate on whether surrogate mothers should relinquish parental rights and responsibilities. This is a very, very serious conversation because lawmakers are considering a bill which, if enacted then, will impose a ban on commercial surrogacy. That is where couples with conception problems pay a woman to carry their child to full term. It also involves the selling or buying of a human embryo or trading in the same. Surrogate mothers can be hired by way of giving payment, reward, benefit, or fees, or other monetary incentives. The proposed law, billed as Africa's most comprehensive assisted reproductive technology law, I don't know why they had to put all those words there, but it seeks to establish a strict regulatory framework for the unchecked sector. The bill was the primary focus of the National Assembly's Wednesday morning, sitting with members of Parliament giving their views on the proposed legislation. So this will raise the spirit of many women who have been crying silently out there and don't know whom to turn to. That's according to one nominated MP, Dorothy Ikiara. Even so, there was a huge debate on whether there is a need for a court order for the surrogate mother to relinquish all parental rights and responsibilities. You speak to couples and they'll tell you this is a serious subject because there's a case. This was like 2 weeks of a situation where a friend was telling me somebody in their family had a situation where, okay, so they decided to talk to this woman. The woman said, okay, fine, I'm going to carry your child. They agreed on the payment. So they went to the clinic, they did all they did, and they actually took an insurance cover for her. So all the bills were paid, up to full term. Then on the day of delivery, what's supposed then to happen is the child is supposed to be taken away from there's a surrogate mother to now the
foster mother, the would-be parent.
Yes. And they're not supposed to even nurse the baby, by the way. The moment the delivery happens, mtoto anachukuliwa anapelekwa nje. So that there is so that they disconnect that, connection with the child, so they don't even breastfeed. But what this woman then decided to do was, okay, please just allow me to just breastfeed this child, maybe just for today and tonight. And this couple was like, okay, fine, it makes sense. It's for the good of the baby. They did. Day 2, because she had to stay in hospital for like 3 days. Day 2, day 3, staying in hospital, this couple is coming to pay her a visit. She's nursing this child. Then by the time they're getting out, it was a problem now, handing over this child. Because they've already built this connection. They've already built this bond. And it became a serious issue. So they had to, this is what we agreed. And the lady was like, okay, fine. A week later, the woman calls. Says, I will follow you wherever you are. Give me my baby. Now it becomes a whole case. So this will need to be settled, because when you talk to couples out there, it's a serious issue. Now, Down syndrome, parents call for special schools. They want the government to ensure proper care, love, and inclusion of every child. So parents of children with Down syndrome at the coast are appealing to the national and county governments to set up more special schools and therapy centers to support early intervention through education and healthcare. And I don't think there's a problem with just coast alone. I think just countrywide, there is just need to have this, because I don't know about you guys, but out of many parents today, you will find there will always be this one child who has this, they talk about a spectrum, autism spectrum.
Yes.
So you're having more and more and more kids today compared to the yesteryears, having autism with different spectrums. And because most parents then are also not really trained and we don't have many centers to know how to handle these kids. So you find there are schools that are admitting these kids and they need special attention, but also the teachers are not trained. I don't know whether we have enough. They also don't know what to do.
Yeah, there is clearly an increase. If you look at the statistics on the number of special needs children, from the onset of our newborns, childhood, all the way. But I've been paying attention to that trend because there's a conversation I was engaged in, and it's turning out that the increase, as you say, in the yesteryears, the numbers were low. So the question was, why now? And it turns out it is all going down to the diet. And maybe one of these days we should have one of the specialists come and try to enlighten us on that, because there is no major change other than the dietary change that the modern parents are going through. And the formation of a child begins from the womb. So what the mother eats creates the baby. And then nowadays we're in this rat race of working. So you realize there's a lot of supplements that kids are subjected to from an early age, sometimes as young as 3 months, before 6 months, because the mother needs to go back to work. So they may express milk is not enough. So what do? They need to supplement that. So it's something we need to seriously think about as a country, because the dietary changes and the food systems that we're having are not very supportive of the human development, especially for the young ones. And now they're leading to an increase on the children with the special needs. And then again, we don't have enough facilities, because some of these, I was being told some of these conditions can be within the spectrum, as you say, can be managed if detected early. But sometimes parents, being a parent, there's a flying joke that every mother thinks that the child is beautiful and smart. until they are not, So for some of the parents, because you don't really get the grasp of what is happening, you think maybe just delayed milestones, which you're like, they're going to catch up. Kids are different. That's what parents say. This one was a fast learner, this one is a slow learner. So the comparison sometimes allows the parents, the mothers mostly, to miss out and what would have required clinical intervention.
To overlook,
And then goes overlooked. It developed into a mainstream condition, and then the kid gets to grow with disabilities or challenges that otherwise would have been arrested if detected early.
A proper conversation to also just talk about ante and postnatal care of both mother and child, to just ensure that, especially in the formative years of the child, that everything is followed to the T, because it is easy to miss something, but if you follow up with your clinics even after, it is easy for the doctors to pick it up. Because I remember when my son was going through, there was when the baby was born, there was an issue. I think there is a ventricle, something in the heart that usually closes over time, and it was a concern. But we were told to go after 1 year to just see where it is. And you see, for us, we would never know. But for a pediatrician, it's something she picked immediately. And, so it was easier to pick it up.
Then also the nutritional deficiencies on the mother. Sometimes during conception. There's some things we overlook because we don't know. But I think we need to advance on the health issues and awareness so that as a mother and also as a father, you know how to come in and how to support and what to do, so that this both child and mother care can be well mainstreamed, and we can have a
it's work, and it's a serious conversation, because the other bit is also overstimulation of these children through watching TV.
Screens.
So you will always hear, and you go online, you'll see these conversations. Is Cocomelon good for kids? And they will tell you, no, Cocomelon's not good for children. Because it's so stimulating, the colors, and then also having worked for TV, when it comes to editing, there is the element where you every frame is like 2 seconds, so it keeps flashing. So you see a lot of flashing images, and so you have a baby who has not started talking. Because the mother is busy at work, the nanny needs to do the dishes, clean the house. This baby is cranky, so the only thing to do is put this baby on a baby seat. Let them watch TV, so they can watch TV for hours. They're watching these cartoons, but then later on you discover this. They don't know how to relate. They're not sociable because they've only been watching the screen. It's very bright colors and very flashy images, and then it does something to the brain development because they're not active. Us guys, tuliendesha mfara, tuliendesha gari ya mabati, dufumpara ro. We never watch TV when we're growing up. So those, and you look at many estates, they don't have play areas anymore. So it's a concrete jungle. So you only take kids, and if you go to malls, that's what you see. Many parents are taking their kids to malls when they're bouncing castles, face painting, at least to get out there, to interact with other children, see nature, because you're locked within the estates, within compounds. It's cabros, concrete, everything.
It's a bigger conversation if you look at it in terms of city planning, how we are planning our residential areas. Do we have common places where children can go to play? It is not just a conversation that will end in hospitals. It is a broader conversation in terms of a country, as a government. What are we doing to ensure that our children grow up well?
Because even the other challenge is that now the elder brothers and sisters to these young ones, they are hooked on video games. And like as you say, you'd be sent out to go and play outside with your brothers back in the day. So today, the elder brother to the young one is stuck in front of another screen. They cannot even interact with the young one because the young one cannot yet play.
PlayStation.
So, this one is on PlayStation, this one is on TV, and then so there is no social skills. It affects a lot, the brain development, as you say, and then the attention span as well. So we need to revise the whole.
It's a whole conversation. Maybe very quickly, I'll just go through this last story. The government has for the first time disclosed details of security operations that ended the wave of abductions, even as it emerged that 18 people are still missing. Interior Cabinet Secretary Kipchumba Murkomen said the police deployed a multi-pronged strategy to curb the abductions, which had triggered public outrage and fear. At the center of the response was the creation of a specialized anti-abductions investigations unit. There was one, by the way. Anti-Abductions Investigations Unit within the National Police Service to exclusively handle kidnapping and enforced disappearance cases. So the CAS said 50 people were reported missing after being abducted by unknown individuals. 24 are later found alive, 8 were discovered dead, while 18 remain unaccounted for. However, part of the data he tabled appeared outdated as it still listed 5 chiefs abducted in Mandera. Among the missing, the missing ones, even though they have since been found. This is an interesting one. It's like a very small story in the inside pages, but
there's a lot. Perhaps a quick congratulations to one Ruben Dolo. The man has been very consistent, and I see he was elected as the president of the Professional Boxing Commission. I think it's worth just to congratulate him.
Yeah, and congratulations to him. These are what you find in the dailies. This morning it is 7 a.m. at the news with Edwin Lisamira.
The latest news from around the world. 94.4 Spice FM.
This is the Newswire. I'm Edwin Lisamira. Students in public universities will from today troop back to classes after missing lessons for 49 days after lecturers called off their strike on Wednesday. Students were directed to return to campuses by Monday next week, with universities set to adjust their academic calendars to recover lost time. The lecturers accepted the government's offer to release their 7.9 billion shillings arrears in 2 installments. Here's UASU Secretary General Dr. Constantine Wasonga.
7.9 billion shall be released to staff in public universities in 4 tranches as follows. Kenya shillings 3.8 billion in November, but no later than 31st December 2025. Kenya shillings 3.8 billion in July 2026. We are not leaving this industrial action with all what we wanted, which was immediate full implementation of 7.9 billion, but we have secured the 7.9 billion.
Wasonga added that all disciplinary letters and sanctions issued against the lecturers will be withdrawn unconditionally, as Education CS Julius Ogamba announced that the government would put measures in place to prevent similar strikes.
All disciplinary action commenced during the pendency of the industrial action shall be deemed withdrawn. For employees on contract, the renewal of their contract shall not be prejudiced by participation in the industrial action.
We are going to have an interministerial CBA implementation team so that we can be looking at how these CBAs that we've signed, whether they are being implemented as agreed.
The breakthrough came after WASU, the Kenya University Staff Union, the Kenya Union of Domestic Hotels, Educational Institutions, Hospitals and Allied Workers, and the Interpublic Universities Council's Consultative Forum signed a return-to-work formula. Embakasi East MP Babu Owino has called on Prime Cabinet Secretary and CS for Foreign and Diaspora Affairs Musalia Mudavadi to demand an investigation into the death of a Kenyan teacher shot in Tanzania. John Ogutu, aged 33, reportedly died on Wednesday last week as police charged at protesters opposing elections in Dar es Salaam. Ogutu, originally from Siaya County, taught at a primary school in Kinondoni and had lived in Tanzania for nearly a decade. Owino expressed concern for Kenyans living in Tanzania, citing post-election tensions since President Samia Suluhu was re-elected with 98% of the vote amid opposition protests. Interior CS Kipchumba Murkomen has raised concern over rising criminal activity within the border sector, blaming it on increased violence and accidents in Western, Nyanza and Nairobi counties. Appearing before the Senate, Murkomen said the government, in partnership with the NTSA and county governments, is registering riders to enforce discipline and prosecute offenders.
One of the security issues that has captured the attention of the public lately is the violence perpetrated through border operators, especially torching of vehicles in road traffic accidents. The issue is particularly prevalent in Western, Nyanza and Nairobi counties. To ensure the sector contributes optimally to the economy, while at the same time preserving law and order, we are working with NTSA and county governments to ensure all operators are registered under SACCOs and assigned the operation areas. The leadership of the SACCO will in return enforce discipline find and report rogue operators to the authorities.
Murkomen also reported progress in the fight against insecurity in urban areas in northern Kenya, with over 600 firearms recovered and several criminal gangs dismantled.
In July 2025, I extended an olive branch for voluntary surrender of illegal firearms, leading to the recovery of 600 weapons and the surrender of several notorious bandits. The minister has also initiated empowerment and reintegration program for the reformed bandits, offering education, skills training, and alternative livelihoods to them. In our urban areas, we have dismantled organized criminal gangs such as Panga Boys, Wakaliwao, Confirm, Gaza, 42 Brothers, among others.
In the United States, Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy warned there will be a 10% reduction in air traffic capacity at 40 major airports in the country starting tomorrow morning if the government shutdown continues. The decision was made because air traffic controllers have been reporting issues with fatigue, the head of the Federal Aviation Administration said at a briefing with Duffy on Wednesday. During the shutdown, now the longest in U.S. history, controllers have had to keep working without pay, prompting some to call out sick or take side jobs. The flight reductions will be gradual, starting at 4% of domestic flights on Friday, then rising to 5% on Saturday and 6% on Sunday, before hitting the full 10% next week. That's the Newswire. I'm Edwin Lisamira.
SpiceFM, Nakuru.
One of the things that are ailing our country is negative ethnicity. You find you as a state officer, instead of thinking as a Kenyan, you think like a tribal person.
Let me tell you something. The biggest problem we have had in this country is a leadership deficit. There is nothing that you are going to do in the process of change if you are not a risk taker. So you really have to pursue your vision to a logical conclusion and even be ready to step on people's toes.
When it comes to the economy, you can run away with it. They say statistics are like bikinis. They reveal a lot, but they conceal the vitals. And so government people would throw statistics at you and tell you they're revealing a lot of information to you, but it's really concealing the real vitals.
We need to get out of that, because when we want to grow our democracy, one basic thing that really requires to be understood by the political class, by all of us, is institutions are critical.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
In this country, 6 families and 8,000 Kenyans control 90% of the GDP. We are not a country. We are a plantation. We work for Ruto.
When you're telling the judges court orders are papers or they will not obey court orders, they're sitting and you're seeking orders from them. So how are they supposed to interpret it? Isn't it an oxymoron?
When you see a judiciary that seems to be under some control somewhere, you start questioning. We have very powerful governors, but they don't use their offices to serve the people.
If you are not shameful to do what you are doing, why should we protect you?
I'm human. Everybody's human. So when you're told, kuja tuongee, I mean, you'd be a fool to say, stagi kuongea today. Conversations have to be had, you know?
People in leadership should only go into leadership if they are ready and willing to change the lot of the people.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
Good morning, and I love your show.
Thank you.
Having come from a Kikuyu radio background, I migrated to Spice because of the content.
I was born in a slum, but somehow I got a break in life. So sometimes when you see the sweating coming out because of the passion and whatever it is, behind the noise, there are people. And we share the same umbilical cord.
It shouldn't be like that. I am so disappointed. We used to tell Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga that he's doing police of conmanship. And even President Uhuru Kenyatta, serikali hii ndio iko na conmanship ya hali ya juu. You cannot promise people that you reduce tax, then you double.
In politics, there is the issue of trust. For you to turn around and then stab the same people who gave you that trust, there is no other level of dishonesty. Imabo, utaona dunia tu.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
If we just gloss over issues and hope that time heals, then we might find that in generations to come, we might be back at the same situation. And the whole thing is born of stolen elections.
Spice.
When it comes to the decisions you make, you must be independent. There's no way you can allow one institution to dictate to you how you're going to conduct your operations, how you're going to decide cases. It's a no.
When you weaken the institution to the point where they cannot take action, then you realize that politicians have to come up and now start dealing with the issues.
That conversation has to die. Our politicians do not like the hard stuff. We must insist on the path of doing things right, whether popular or unpopular.
Money changes hands. That is a fact. If you have political goodwill at the highest top, like in Rwanda, then corruption will be an issue of the past. If you don't have political goodwill at the top, we will pass laws, we will amend laws, we will continue passing laws and re-amending laws, and nothing will happen.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
The following takes place from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. every weekday on SpiceFM.
Presidency is fairly interesting in the sense that it will actually take us to a new consciousness.
Swali zile watu hawaulizi na swali muuliza na shangala ni aje, kwani huku kunaendaje?
30 billion shillings annually on travel alone in public service.
A Kenyan can even demonstrate every single day of his life that Ruto must go. That is the only message of his demonstration. That is his right.
That bribe blinds the eyes of the wise and subverts the cause of those who are in the right.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
One of the things that are ailing our country is negative ethnicity. You find you as a state officer, instead of thinking as a Kenyan, you think like a tribal person.
Let me tell you something. The biggest problem we have had in this country is a leadership deficit. There is nothing that you are going to do in the process of change if you are not a risk taker. So you really have to pursue your vision to a logical conclusion and even be ready to step on people's toes.
When it comes to the economy, you can run away with it. They say statistics are like bikinis. They reveal a lot, but they conceal the vitals. And so government people would throw statistics at you and tell you they're revealing a lot of information to you, but it's really concealing the real vitals.
We need to get out of that, because when we want to grow our democracy, one basic thing that really requires to be understood by the political class, by all of us, is institutions are critical.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi. This is the Situation Room.
It is exactly 13 minutes after 7 a.m. and we are getting into the conversation that we shall be having this hour, and that will be with Angela Minayo, our Programs Officer, Digital Rights and Policy at Article 19 Eastern Africa. And it's all about offline elections, online repercussions. What next, Tanzania? What are the next steps for Tanzania? We shall be as well touching base with Rajab from Tanzania to just give us the situation in Tanzania, how the country is moving forward following the chaos that followed the elections in the country, as Evelyn continues to set us up, and touch base with Rajab, and even as we wait for Minayo to make her way here. But Kamanya, as we talk about matters to do with Tanzania, we reckon that the elections, you've seen the statement that has come from SADC, statement that has come from African Union and several negotiators, and they paint a situation of an election that was not free and fair, and perhaps much more need to be done to ensure that the elections are moving forward. There is semblance of fairness, that people are involved, that elections and democracy is experienced in the country. How does then President Samia Suluhu bring the country together? Because now Tanzania is not as it was before.
Well, this was unprecedented.
because Tanzania has always been known to be otherwise, calm, tranquil, and there has not been very much political discourse. Perhaps the last rebellion was the Majimaji rebellion that led now to their freedom, them becoming a republic. And since then, they have stayed with this Ujamaa, sort of more of a Soviet socialist approach. Then we've developed as a continent into an era of now new democracy, and you've seen the call for new constitutions, and there is a change in how people choose to engage in the politics of the day and choosing the governance structures they want to have. So I think, in my opinion, Tanzania is coming in a bit late because what they're calling for are reforms, constitutional reforms, to allow everybody to participate, because that is the modern world we are living in, where every voice should and must count. Therefore, when you see resistance of now their regime not wanting to enforce or give space for that democratic expression, it begs for a question: why? Why would you not want to be a leader that has a legitimacy from the people? What was the threat that the reforms led by the Tundu Lissu that he's calling for? What was the threat that is posing to their country through their nation? Because the nation is the people, and if there is an uproar that they want to participate, it informs the would-be leadership to allow people, because that gives you more legitimacy as a president of that nation. However, that did not happen. Then we've had, they're calling it uasi na uhaini, protesting against the government, and then you are arrested and they say you are liable to answer questions around, not terrorism, what do you call it? Treason,
Yeah, treasonous cases, yeah.
So it begs for a lot of questions, but looking at it before we answer the question whether she will be able to unite the country, I'm looking at it from an angle whereby we know, as a continent, we have an organ called the African Union. And the African Union has a whole charter that talks about governance, democracy, and elections. They even have a checklist on how and what a credible and legitimate election ought to look like in Africa. So my question is, according to the African Union, does what transpired in Tanzania last week, was it last week? Yes, 29, reflect, is it a true reflection of the threshold of a legitimate election?
Yet, even as we talk about the African Union chairperson, Mahmoud, yes. Sent congratulatory messages on the election of President Samia Suluhu. Yeah. And that as well, we see the backlash that followed after that. And one would just ask, in terms of legitimacy, who gives the president legitimacy? One would argue it is the people who gives you the legitimacy.
Indeed.
And you look at what followed later at the protest, then after the protest, the swearing-in ceremony that happened in a military camp, in a military camp. And one just asks the question, if you got 31 million votes, you got over 80%, over 98% of the votes, then one would expect that 98% of the people who voted for you would show up.
Indeed.
31 million people would show up to celebrate you. Then why stay away? Why decide to be in a military base, in a military camp, where your citizens, those who gave you the mandate to lead, are not welcomed? And just talks of democracy in Africa, that perhaps we need to sit and look back and determine what that term means to us, Okari.
There's so many groups that are now challenging, among other things, Tanzania's internet shutdown. That in itself, when you block access to the internet, it's not only backward. And we've seen, even in Kenya, there was that attempt. Actually, it wasn't an attempt. They did it. It happened. Where during the protest, they were like, you know what? We're going to shut down the TV stations that are actually showing these things live. Then there was a point where Telegram is down. You can't access Telegram. Sorry. And in Tanzania, it was the same thing. There was a point Telegram was actually down. And the reason is then it's easier to maybe try and stay anonymous by sharing videos and images through Telegram than on WhatsApp or even on X. Again, we go back to that conversation. When you create an information black market where anything then can actually be thrown out there, including AI images, then you're making the situation worse. Because there was a point where the certain people were sharing images that were actually not necessarily Tanzania. Those images were from Kenya. And everybody was actually believing this is actually Kenya. So you then leave room for speculation. And it doesn't help. It doesn't help the situation. These lobby groups, and they're actually very, very many from the continent. They're actually saying, they are asserting that Tanzania should be held accountable for violating its international commitments. Among other things, upholding human rights. There's the issue of free communication, and then there is also the democratic process that should have been above board. My question is this. So when you're talking about Tanzania being held accountable for violating international commitments, who's the prefect? Because several years ago, if you did something like this, you'll actually get the EU, you'll get the US, you'll get all these big players saying, beyond condemning, there are repercussions and sanctions for you doing something like this. They will even have barred presidents from flying into their own countries. And so today we are living in a space, and we're in a situation where Donald Trump, the in quotes, the bigger prefect, is busy with making America great again. And you see how then he tries to for lack of a better word, to meddle into the affairs of other countries. He wants to stop wars. He wants to do all these things, but it comes also at a price. Who is the bigger boy here? Is it the AU? The AU is not necessarily speaking very strongly against what happened in Tanzania. So where do people go to?
I mean,
so the heads of state are being emboldened. That even if Mtadu, who's going to do anything?
And in there lies the problem and the crisis that the continent continues to face. Because there's a statement that was made here that whatever happens in Tanzania is like a child's play, and then it would happen it would be improved in Uganda, and it would be cemented in Kenya. Because if you look at how the elections are being held, so it is Tanzania, then Uganda, then Kenya. And if whatever happens in Tanzania is not addressed in time, if we do not see justice in Tanzania, there's a high possibility we'd see even worse in Uganda, and perhaps Kenya would even do the same thing, because you look at this club that is being held in the region, and one would say it is just what they're doing to ensure that they continue to remain in power. So one would ask the question, even as leaders struggle and strive to remain in power, to lead, who are you leading? If those you're leading are telling you, we do not want what you're doing, we want democracy, not just as a lip service, but as a reality that we as a people feel like we participated in an election that represented our will, So if the leaders do not connect with the with the mwananchi, with the citizenry, with their bosses, then who exactly are they leading? Why are they fighting for this power if the people have said, sir, we need a change?
I opine that we are fighting the remnants of the colonial systems. And the persons we are referring to as the leaders are mere puppets, in my opinion, of a system that has remained oppressive to us as Africans. Because you are looking at, these are political parties actually that came up immediately after freedom. And therefore, the systems they have used to lead the nations across Africa are they just took over the colonial system. That's why you see there is not much systemic change. So the benefactors or the beneficiaries of this modern colonization that was handed over after the freedom fighting are the ones who are resisting the progressive democracy that Africa requires. And yet today here we have children born into freedom. Because every president in Africa, I dare say, was born during colonization or thereabout, you know. But now, the people who are aspiring to make the change they want in Africa, we were born into freedom. So we are liberated, not just mentally, but also spiritually. We know this is our home and that we are the ones who make the decisions on how we ought to be governed. We understand that we have a constitution. Like in Kenya, I love it because our order is that the constitution, the people are supreme. And we have created a constitution. And from that constitution, we have a government. But in other countries, in this case like Tanzania, the government is supreme than the constitution, than the people. And that's how you see suppression continues to play out. So I think it's a systemic change that we are fighting. It is a new era for Africa. The Pan-Africanism that was experienced then was to liberate us, that people would have freedom of movement. But now we need freedom of governance. We need to have systems that are homegrown, the same way Europe did. You know, they had to break away from their own old systems and upgrade their own new governance that has led to prosperity, respectively. So we need to do the same as Africa. And come out, and I would urge people to continue with it's a revolution that is happening. You cannot expect something that worked 60 years ago to be pertinent today. I mean, for heaven's sake, we are even changing our education system. So why would you want people to remain as they were before they were educated? Okay. So it's a paradigm shift, and those who are benefactors of those old systems and regimes are the ones who are resisting.
You know, I hear you speak, and I just ask myself, what will it take for us to finally be Uhuru? You know, like the actual word. You know, because there is that book by Jaramogi, Not Yet Uhuru. Not Yet Uhuru. You know, and it's a question of fine. We are an independent country. We have the flag, but are we really independent? Are we really free? You know, because there is the aspect of we can now rule ourselves, we can make our own decisions, but are we making these decisions for the benefit of Okari, or are we making these decisions so that the political class can rule over the citizenry, and the citizenry have to take whatever comes their way? So it is a conversation in the changes that we see, because you look at the Gen Z factor, the young people, and their demands and the changes and the push that they have, especially in the continent. And one would look at, how then do I bring these people on board? We have this conversation and sort out the problems that we do have. Because the way we have been doing things post-independence, it's not the same way we can do it 60, 70 years later.
But you see, it's a generational issue. Generational in this sense. When I was born at a time when you go to school and the idea of passing exams is eventually to get a job with government.
Yeah.
At the time, the concept of working for private sector wasn't really that big, okay? Well, I'm not that old, but the point I'm making is...
You're still old.
Kila mtu alikuwa anaenda shule, and the mzazi anakwambia, you get good grades upate kazi kwa serikali. Meaning that there's job security, that once you are employed and pensionable, you are set for life. Where would I retire in your 50s or whatever, 60s? So, working for government, for our parents, they were also born in a generation where it was, you respect government, you are told what to do and you do it. You're told to jump, you ask how high. You don't start to question, why are you asking me to jump? You just jump. Or you ask, how high do you want me to jump? So they were again living through a regime that was very, very fierce and was very during the time of Daniel Moi, during that time when we didn't understand, okay, what is multi-party? You are born and raised and you grow in an environment where you only know one party, one president. Everything is just one. Chama ni ya baba na ya mama. So then there is this other voice, and you've already seen what's happening to anybody who tries to rise up, the likes of former Prime Minister Raila Odinga. And that's why people are celebrating him, because he lived through these generations. He fought through these generations, the likes of Kenneth Matiba and so many other people. People carried wounds and trauma through that period for us to get where we are. So the freedoms that we're enjoying today, the freedoms are as a result of people who actually, the likes of Timothy Njeri, the people who suffered for us to enjoy what you're enjoying today, that we can freely speak here on Spice FM, say what is on our minds, give our opinions, and you're not fearing that you will not step out of that door. And so now we have a generation, and you see that mentality through government, that mentality through politics was passed down to the next generation of leaders. Today you have Gen Zs. So what Gen Zs are saying, they're saying, look, you don't tell us you're going to impose these taxes. You don't tell us that this is what we are going to do. Include us in the conversation, which is something totally new. And even in the workspace, even in the private sector, these are conversations that are ongoing. Like, how do we integrate and how do we work with this generation? Because their way of thinking is different. Their way of doing things is different. They want to be included in the conversations. You just don't sit in a boardroom, make decisions, then call up a meeting and say, from tomorrow, this is what you're going to do. They are like, okay, so when did you start? Why are you telling us we need to do this? It's not necessarily rebellion. They're living at a time when they are very curious and want to be included in decision making. So you have non-politicians who are imposing things, and they're saying, no, you cannot impose these things on us. No, come talk to us. That's why they actually summoned the president, come to the X-Space. Now Olimpasha.
Yeah. And you look at it, it cuts across all the continent again. Because these are continental.
It's a continental problem,
We started off with the ANC in South Africa. They were not able to marshal enough numbers to make government. They had to go to bed with the DA, you know, a party that they had never seen eye to eye, because DA was seen as just an extreme opposite that was trying to bring back the oppressive regime in a manner of speaking. But they had to, because ANC, being a party again that took over immediately after their own colonization and freedom fighting, was beginning to lose numbers because they felt the system was not serving the people. Again, go to ZANU, that was I think in Zimbabwe, and come up all the way Botswana. We've seen this going around. We have Burkina Faso, Senegal, Cameroon, all these new entrants of a new breed of leaders, because it is speaking to, as you say, we the people now know. This is not the day whereby, you know, for a long time when I was young, I thought every president was called Moi. Like in any country, Moi, I thought it was a presidential term. I did not know it was when I was a young boy, because he was in power for too long, grew up knowing it is Moi. So you'd ask, as young kids, like when you're talking about other countries, Sasa Moi wa Uganda ni nani? You know, because it has been entrenched in our mind, this is the person. And whatever he would say, that was it. The person was the law. But now we have developed systems of governance where we want to see a continent, a country change. Now, coming closer now to Tanzania, we have another organ called the East African Community. And actually, IALA itself deployed members of their parliament to Tanzania to go and oversee the election and how it was happening. I'm yet to hear a report on how they have concluded, what their observations were, because they owe us as the East African community members that report.
You know, we had one of the legislators here, Honorable Sankoke, and they said they were also waiting for that report to discuss, and then they will give their recommendations on the same. But let me just sample some of the comments from our listeners here. And Emmanuel Templar asked what's the threat TZ saw in Tundu Lissu, and this is what he's actually saying, that the threat could be Lissu is what we call an agent in a foreign intelligence service. It may be true or false. We have president agents of France and the US. So in his view is that perhaps maybe Lissu is an agent from outside. The reason why he went through what he went through, whether he has that evidence, is a subject for debate. But again, one would ask, in a country where there is multi-party democracy, the aspect of multi-party democracy has to show. Opponents have to be on the ballot. Let's go to Livity. It says, it's only a matter of time before it bites itself. And what will you expect from AU when its chairperson, Mohammed from Djibouti? What happened in Tanzania is normal in Djibouti. African citizens are asking hyenas at AU to make judgment on themselves. And we have Triglis anasema lazima kieleweke, and Obara Omondi, what do you expect from a team that also did the same thing during the Gen Z demos? One would ask about what do you expect from Kenya? How do we expect the president of Kenya to react on what happened in Tanzania if you just look back on what happened in his own backyard? And we were talking about Lowassa campaigned against government without being jailed. I think Suluhu and our advisors have approached it wrong. You can nick up opposition clandestinely. I mean, it is, if you just look at what Kenyans are saying, you look at what the world is saying with regard to democracy in Africa, and there is the question of what exactly is democracy in Africa.
You know, you raised a pertinent issue earlier when you asked when will we be fully in Uhuru status? When are we going to be free? It is when we start experiencing our own economic liberation. The economic revolution is what is going to empower Africans to self-govern, to self-regulate. Because we keep talking about the AU, but it expects external funding to run its own affairs. So that can never give you the autonomy you need to make decisions. Because if AU was fully fledged operational on their own merit and resources, they would deny Mama Suluhu a seat based on the illegitimacy of the election. They would intervene on Sudan. They would have intervened on Kenya. So until we have our own African economic revolution, we remain subject. And if you remember, you'd call it the kings and the kingdom times in the UK, a man became free when he was allowed to till his own land and live on his own sweat. And he would sit on tables to make decisions on how he wanted to be governed.
You know, I hear you speak of Kenya will only be free when we are allowed to process our own gold, to process our own fuel, to value add on our own coffee, to value add on our own flowers, and sell what many would want to call a complete product. You know, value has been added, so you buy at market price, not that nakuzia mchanga and then nakuja kununua dhahabu. Okay.
But guys, how are we going to experience this when, for example, the banks, without mentioning names, some of the banks we have are owned by politicians or families of politicians. Very major industries, the insurance companies, owned by these same very, very people. You've got industries where it's the same very people who are doing business amongst themselves. So you've got procurement. You've got, for example, you want to buy uniforms. You want to distribute printing papers in government offices. Who are the people who own these businesses? It's the very people who occupy this. How then do we expect money to circulate and build an economy around where people, for example, we've been talking about pending bills in counties as an example. And as long as you're connected to the governor, you will get paid. If you are not, then you are going to, your profit margins will have to shrink because you'll be told, okay, for us to fast track this payment, because this was the other governor, then what it means is you have to part with 10%. So you'd rather then do away with your profit margins, give the 10%. So as long as you actually break even. So if you provide services and you need to make payments, the idea is let me break even and just walk away. This is what we're talking about. So when we say economic liberation, who's then doing business in this country? Who is in the construction business? Who is in the housing business? Is it an uncle, somebody, a relative you know? Do you know any of your relatives who is actually freely doing legitimate business and has employees? Do you know of any? Very few. You can actually count it on hand. So a lot of these people run our economy through proxies, and that's why we end up in a situation where if, for example, somebody decided, you know what, we're going to shut this thing down tutaumia sisi wote. Reason being, it's being controlled by the very people who are trying to set up these laws. They know how they're doing business. The case of Tanzania, we were told yesterday, the case of Tanzania, in a business sense, the reason why you will not expect Kenyan leaders to speak so openly about it, although they will quietly tell you they understand what's going on and they totally agree with the rest of us that what is happening in Tanzania is wrong. It is simply because how many Kenyan banks are in Tanzania? How many companies have branches in Tanzania? How many Kenyan workers are in Tanzania? Then compared to how many Tanzanians are doing business in Kenya. So when you look at, in terms of the business sense, the country or the people who are in these businesses will try to safeguard their business interest, and they'll be like, no, you can't castigate Suluhu. You can't say she's a monster. You can't say she's this. You can't say she's that. Reason being, the moment you align yourself with the voices of the majority who are against what has happened, then it means, and I'm so sure Suluhu knows this. She's holding Kenya by the, so she knows this. She knows you guys need me more than I need you. If I shut down all Kenyans, for all Kenyans go back, it's Kenya that is going to miss. Tanzania will not.
But you know what I like about what you're saying, Dennis? You mentioned the word company a number of times. And this is how all governments were formed in Africa. The Kenya ones was the British Empire that came and formed a company called the Government of Kenya.
Yes.
Which has remained exploitative and extractive. That's why we are saying it's a colonial system. And then the banks issue, and I agree with you, the number one beneficiaries of these systems are the banks. You look at Kenya, the top 10 well-performing companies, out of the 10, 8 are banks, our local banks, which have branches in Tanzania as well.
Yes.
And then the other 2 is East African Breweries and Safaricom, where also you have government in there. So there is no room for economic prosperity of us private corporates who are trying to spur the economy the way you're saying. Unless you know someone, it becomes difficult for you to headway in the corporate industry, in the business sector.
But I'm troubled in the sense that, let's take Kenya, for example, a country who you look at education levels, even in the region. Kenya, people have gone to school. We are smart.
Kenya has some of the very smart individuals.
People, And you look at what that resource means to a country, and one would say you are at a vantage point based of if it's coming up with policies, innovation. Kenya is well placed. Academia. Kenya is well placed.
Right.
And you look at the power that the people have, because when you look at our there's a reason why that constitution starts with we the people, and one would just sit and look at that constitution and you would immediately understand that the power belongs to the people and have to do right by the people. But here we understand the system that we are working with. It is a colonial system that is preying on the people. But we as the people understanding what is happening, that everything is extractive, how do we then change the tide? Because we can't also just sit every other day and say it is an extractive economy, it is not giving us our right. We must do something as a continent. As Africans, we must rise up and say, this is how we need to move. Gen Zs, Kenyans got out there and spoke. Tanzanians are speaking. Burkina Faso is speaking. Uganda is speaking. How do we take advantage of all these voices to finally say we are Uhuru? Because we can't keep flying the flag and not feel independent. Country
it's this thing. Let me tell you guys, it's beyond the politics. What we're seeing is just the optics. The underbelly is something much deeper. And politicians, as we know, they're not stupid. Sometimes you think these guys are stupid. They are very well invested in their own interests and in their futures and their business interests. I'll give you some statistics here. According to Tanzania Invest, this is a Tanzanian investment promotion website, about 529 Kenyan companies have set base in Tanzania. How many companies? 529 companies have set base in Tanzania. The amount of investments in US dollar is $1.7 billion. That's the investment in Tanzania from Kenyan companies, which it's creating more than 56,000 jobs for Tanzanians. Atujesabu wa Kenya, these are just Tanzanians. Now, in 2023, Business Daily actually did an article on Kenyan companies' assets abroad that shows that in Tanzania, we have about 96.7 billion in assets as of 2023. Now, if you're to then give a general note to this conversation in terms of the business interest, and we're earlier talking about banks. Now, Kenyan banks, we have KCB Group, we have Equity Group, we have Diamond Trust Bank Group, we have I&M Group, we have NCBA Group, which have active subsidiaries and operations in Tanzania. This is just the few that I've mentioned. And so, if Tanzania is hosting this number of companies, over 529 in assets in US dollars, those are the figures I've just mentioned. We look at now Tanzanian companies in Kenya. In Kenya, according to the Kenya National Chamber of Commerce and Industry, there are 30 Tanzanian companies which have invested 19 billion Kenya shillings. This is not USD. In Kenya shillings, employing 2,600 people. You see the compare and contrast. So you have 30 Tanzanian companies in Kenya. You have 529 Kenyan companies in Tanzania. And this is just averages. The numbers, of course, keep changing every day. So if you're to look at this qualitative reporting of the Kenyan and Tanzania comparison, then it tells you, if Samia Suluhu decides then, okay, whatever has happened here is foreigners who have come in, the way she said. If you are to take her words literally, it's because there's interference and infiltration from other foreign. Which foreign countries is she referring to? We can read the dotted line. Of course, she's referring to Kenya, but by extension, it's Kenya. So who then ends up suffering? So it tells you the silence from our leadership
is because
they're looking at these 529 companies and Kenyan business interest in Tanzania, because if they decide then to say exactly what you and I are thinking and are saying, because us guys don't have companies in Tanzania, so you can freely say as what it is, they are looking at the future and thinking, wait, if we dare attack Suluhu, we don't congratulate her. We are going to lose business, we're going to shut down all the companies, and this is what you're going to lose. And Tanzania knows that Kenya will stand to lose more.
And now play that back again, because we're talking about systems. Look at the slavery period. The people who did not want the oppressors kicked out of the territories were the house Negroes. The house nigger used to say, but we are well fed and we sleep in warm places. You out in the field are the ones who are complaining, and they would betray the other ones, those who are plotting to oust the regime change. It is the same thing today. These benefactors, people who are running companies supported by these rogue, in my opinion, regimes, at the expense of the majority of us as Africans, are the ones who do not want change. So we must treat the house Negro the same way we are treating the oppressor, because he's the one who is safeguarding the oppressor. You asked, until when and what can we do? We, the people, must rise up, the people of Africa, the people of Kenya, because Kenya, we are very progressive. We have a constitution that cannot be, we have defended it and we continue to defend it. It cannot be overturned. Then when it comes to now the voting, because remember, even this conversation is around how the Tanzanian elections took place. When it comes to voting and going to the ballot, we must agree, what issues are we voting on? Why are we going to vote? Whom are we voting for? And I think in 2027, because you said the finals will be played here on the 10th of August, 2027 in Kenya, we must vote on the economic question, because that is what is going to liberate us as a country. We get these accolades, which sometimes I take them with a pinch of salt, that we are the hub of Africa. We, Kenya, we are the hub of Africa. It plays both ways. We can be the guinea pig of whatever they want to infiltrate and bring to Africa, which can be negative sometimes. And we also could set pace on how Africa needs to start playing in the political and the governance arena if we vote wisely and if we take the lead in the economic liberation.
Let me throw it out there. So we're talking about the continent, right? So whatever happened in Tanzania, we look at investments Kenya has in Tanzania, right? How much in terms of dollars is there vis-a-vis what Tanzania has invested in Kenya? The bottom line is we have both invested in each other because we know we need each other to survive, right? And this then brings forth the conversation of we might have been we have been held by, by the president. But how about the Tanzanian citizens who depend on these companies that are set up in Tanzania, the Kenyan companies set up in Tanzania for their daily upkeep, So it is a question of, if we know the leadership is taking advantage of the economic positions of both countries and each other, how about the people? We as a people, not just we as a people of Kenya, but we as citizens of the continent, of Africa, of East Africa, citizens of the world, sit and decide that we want to be ruled and be treated in a certain direction. That every other time you're given an opportunity to go vote, that when a politician comes to campaign in your locale, you sit down and ask the difficult questions. Because leaders have taken advantage of the fact that we are like televisions. We are being controlled like remotes. We are being told what they will do for us. We never question back and say, that is what you've said, but this is what we want you to do for us. It is not about you, it is about us. And once we as a continent, we as Africans, as citizens of the world, get to that point where we question each and every single thing and make decisions that are uncomfortable to the leadership, then perhaps we will start having a conversation saying that as a continent we are free, that the leadership that we have represents us. Because remember, there is a saying that says, leaders are a clear reflection of who we are.
I agree with you. Both countries will stand to lose. So let's just think through what I said. So you have over 529 companies on average, Kenyan companies in Tanzania, compared to Tanzanian companies in Kenya. They're few in number. But you're also looking at how the economy then grows. There's the aspect of human labor.
Yes.
So you can't definitely kick out, like what Idi Amin did in Uganda,
yes.
kicked out all the Asians. And look at what happened. It was disastrous. So you had all these shops that were being managed and run and owned by Indians in Uganda at the time. And all of a sudden the looting, those things are on YouTube. You go, you'll see what exactly happened after that declaration by Idi Amin. So you have people then going in and looting. So for so many years, people ended up suffering. And they also said the same thing of Kenya. So we gained our independence. We kicked out the British. So immediately they left, we were starting, okay, so how do we start running our education? How do we start running government? How do we start running this? So, and the reason you see, for example, in South Africa, I may not necessarily go into the details, what you see in South Africa is a bit different. There was a time South Africa used to say, we are South Africa and the rest of Africa. They never considered themselves as, part of Africa. And this is part of the fight that Malema has in South Africa, for example. Kick out these guys out of South Africa. Let's build our own country. But the status quo will tell you, no way, go to Cape Town. You kick out all these guys from Cape Town, for example, and then who takes over? Who takes over security? Who takes over these companies? How then do you grow an economy? You need to coexist. In this instance, it will be foolish to kick out Kenyans from Tanzania. It will be foolish to kick out all these companies and punish Kenyans who are living in Tanzania, because you might be looking at this in terms of politics. Fine, get rid of all these Kenyans. Then what you're left with is, you'll be left with a human capital deficit, where these are the people who are actually, because all the money they're making stays within your country. They're growing your economy. We are talking about 96.7 billion Kenya shillings in assets as of 2023 as a result of this. So what are you then saying to these figures? These figures will go down. Your economy will be affected. As much as you want to then create jobs for your very own, these things have to work in terms of phases. You can't just shut down and then now start recruiting to patia wa Tanzania kazi, kick out all the Kenyans. It's not going to work.
What does this speak of? What does this speak of the region that is the EAC? Yesterday we had an interesting conversation here with EALA Member of Parliament David Sankok, and we had him speak that there are a lot of aspirations that we are yet to achieve in terms of political integration, so that we have an EAC state. But even as we have that discussion, one would look at it in terms of all these bodies that we have. So we have the East Africa Community. What is it doing? What is it saying about the elections? You talk about the African Union. We're still being funded by outsiders, by those weak colonizers are funding the African Union. We have a problem in South Sudan. And we don't even have an African army that would go into South Sudan and help deal with the problem. We had the problem in Kenya. Nobody helped us deal with the killings that we saw happen on the streets. The same in Tanzania. And everybody seems to be focused on, it is Kenyans' time to deal with their problems. Once they're good, we'll start talking about business. We'll start talking about integration and all these things. But when the region is needed to come on the table to deal about something that is bringing the EAC as a factor, that the people are the ones who bring EAC into reality, no one cares at that particular point. So how do we strengthen EAC, AU, SADC to make sense? Because it does not.
And I agree with you, it does not make sense. Because as of now, I have not seen a report. And I just told you, I know for a fact, EALA deployed MPs to go and just observe the election in Tanzania. The prudence starts there. If they can come and give a verifiable report that holds on what transpired, that would be the beginning of strengthening that organ. Because from that, perhaps they could influence policies that are going to help us mitigate, navigate, and manage the electoral cycles in our region. However, looking back now, as you're saying, Dennis, collapsing some of these companies as a result of this political interference may have an economic repercussion. But might that be the price that we have to pay for us to liberate ourselves? Because remember, even during the freedom fighting times, people left their homes, left their families, they left their businesses. People were killed, actually, So freedom comes at a price. There is a cost to pay for that. And sometimes there is what we call the decolonization of the African man. And I wish we can listen to truth. There is a man called Joshua Maponga, and he's been in Kenya of late. And I like listening to him because of how he comes out, and the likes of him. They talk about how we Africans have been colonized enough that we've grown so warm with what you'd call a prison guard. You're in a cell, the prison guard brings you food, brings you water, checks whether, but you are in a prison. But because you've grown so warm, you've stayed with the captive for far too long, there is even a syndrome, it is there, it's documented in our psychological theories, that you can become so warm to the captive and you're like, okay, this is the life I've been designated to live. That is where Africa is. And unless we choose to decolonize ourselves and agree that South Africa can be free and led by South Africans, there should not be this fear-mongering that the Western Cape, unless there is a cessation, South Africa is going to collapse if the South Africans are left to govern themselves. If we as Kenya or Tanzania or any other African country, we say no to suppression of the voice of dissent. Because Tanzania, they have it in their constitution that once the Chebukati in court says, Dennis, you're the president, no one can question that. That is suppression of the voice of dissent. They'll come with fear-mongering that if you do this, investors are going to run and leave your country. Then your economy is going to collapse. That's fear-mongering. We have to agree. What can we do? What price are we willing to pay? To what extent are we willing to go to liberate ourselves?
And I think it is a conversation that keeps on giving, conversation that is necessary for us to continue having. But even as we have this conversation, Okari, you have a plan.
Yes, I do have a plan. This conversation is all about, okay, so what's going to happen in the next couple of years? So people are making plans. I'm sure there are companies that are sitting down and rethinking, okay, so how are people safe? There are actually a lot of Kenyans who are still checking up on their friends, families, and colleagues. Is everything okay? The internet is slowly coming back. But as we talk about planning, here on the Station Room, because we're all about the future, plans and goals and tough choices that shape our lives are very critical. But here is a question. What's your plan? Life's moving very fast, so you have to pay bills, achieve your dreams, you have responsibilities, and somewhere in between, the future then starts creeping up on you. ICA Lion helps you protect, grow, and plan for what matters most. So don't wait for the wake-up call. Insurance, investments, and peace of mind, all that made simple and accessible, because if you're not planning for the future, it's high time you did. ICA Lion. What's your plan?
And you see, even as we talk about planning and having all these monies to spend, there's a place that you need to go. And where are we going to? Naivas One Mall Magadi. And this is where things have just gotten hotter and better, because Naivas is in town now. The brand new Naivas One Mall Magadi Road branch is officially open, being the 111th Naivas branch. And Naivas appreciates everyone, all of us, for 35 years. Imagine 35 years of existence and of loyalty, love, and growth. Now, traffic may be moving slow, but Magadi Road is moving fast with excitement, and you know what that means. It means fresh deals, great vibes, and aisles full of your favorites. So if you love convenience, quality, and that Naivas freshness, this is the spot for you. And not just that. So when you hit Magadi Road, make that quick stop, shop Kikwetu style, and experience the Naivas One Mall magic. One Magadi Road for a chance to win daily on items below 1,000 bob. Weekly, you can grab toasters, blenders, kettles, and win big on TVs, fridges, microwaves, and so much more, because Naivas does what? Saves you money. Be sure to be part of that 111th mall, Naivas One Mall. It is exactly a minute past 8 a.m. Good morning.
It is now 8 a.m. with ICEA Lion. It is time to plan ahead with ICEA Lion. What's your plan?
The latest news from around the world. 94.4 Spice FM.
Twin Lisamira. Education CS Julius Ogamba has asked Parliament for 2 months to complete verification of funds allegedly misused in the so-called Ghost School scandal. Appearing before the National Assembly, Ogamba said the ministry is still verifying data, noting that 934 schools are yet to submit their reports. He added that action will be taken against any officials found culpable once the verification is complete, and cases involving criminal activity will be forwarded to investigative agencies.
This exercise of verification, we started exactly 2 months ago on the 5th of September 2025, not June. And it is unfair to make a claim, and I've asked, give me time, I give you a report and the action that I've taken. I cannot, for example, in the middle of the verification, sack people from the office because they will litigate. It is important for us.
How much time do you require, Minister?
We want to ask for exactly 2 months because we are undertaking exams that will end on 21st. Then I come back here with the report. And this is not something that started in September. It is something that has been going on in this country for a long time. So we need to make sure that we are solving it once and for all.
Ogamba's request for more time to release the report came after MPs put him to task, wondering why the ministry was doing more investigation. Here are Millie Odhiambo of Suba North and Hakitui South counterpart Rachel Nyamweya.
Why would we be taking so long telling us that we are trying to trace here and there? You have found that there is a school, non-existent school, and somebody has paid to a non-existent school. Can I come to your office and tell you who paid to that school? It's as simple as that. Just pinpoint
point who paid that non-existent school and throw them out of the office. It's as simple as ABC.
It means that there is a problem of failure to provide information. These people are not providing information, have a name, have an identity card, they are known where they belong to, their counties are known, their sub-counties are known, their wards are known, and they can be arrested. It is happening in other ministries. Why not in the Ministry of Education?
The National Cohesion and Integration Commission has dismissed reports claiming it has been disbanded, saying it remains fully operational and continues to execute its legal mandate. In a statement, the Commission clarified that its existence is anchored in the National Cohesion and Integration Act No. 12 of 2008, which provides for a single, non-renewable single-year term for the chairperson and 7 commissioners. The NCIC described recent media reports alleging its disbandment as incorrect, misleading and misrepresentation of facts. It insisted that it remains focused on promoting equality, good relations and peaceful coexistence among Kenya's ethnic and racial communities, and is preparing a comprehensive handover report to President William Ruto in line with its accountability mandate. Samuel Mbugua, a Kenyan who was kidnapped in Ethiopia over a week ago, has been reunited with his family following a reported 3 million shillings ransom payment. The office of the Prime CS, Musalia Mudavadi, confirmed Mbugwa's return on Wednesday, a day after his release. He was reportedly arrested on October the 28th in Debre Bahan, Amhara region, under unclear circumstances. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs said his release resulted from coordinated efforts by the Ethiopian government, the Kenyan embassy in Addis Ababa, his employer and his family, involving close dialogue and collaboration among all parties. The government of Sudan has called on the United Nations Security Council to investigate and act against states and groups supplying weapons and funding to the RSF accused of atrocities in Darfur. Speaking at the Sudanese embassy in Nairobi, Ambassador Mohamed Osman urged the international community to halt the flow of arms and financial support, warning it fuels the ongoing humanitarian and security crisis. Osman expressed concern over reports that RSF supporters are recruiting and importing foreign fighters from neighboring countries. He criticized the appalling silence of the global community, despite tens of thousands having died and more than 9 million people having been displaced as the RSF continues to unleash terror on civilians.
Eyewitnesses and humanitarian organizations report house-to-house execution, public hanging, and mass graves across the city. Civilians were run over by armored vehicles in the streets. Women and girls were raped in front of their families. Elderly men were shot in their homes.
That's the Newswire. I'm Edwin Lisamira.
.5 Spice FM, Kisumu.
One of the things that are ailing our country is negative ethnicity. You find you as a state officer, instead of thinking as a Kenyan, you think like a tribal person.
Let me tell you something. The biggest problem we have had in this country is a leadership deficit. There is nothing that you are going to do in the process of change if you are not a risk taker. So you really have to pursue your vision to a logical conclusion and even be ready to step on people's toes.
When it comes to the economy, you can run away with people with it. They say statistics are like bikinis. They reveal a lot, but they conceal the vitals. And so government people would throw statistics at you and tell you they're revealing a lot of information to you, but it's really concealing the real vitals.
We need to get out of that, because when we want to grow our democracy, one basic thing that really requires to be understood by the political class, by all of us, is institutions are critical.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
In this country, 6 families and 8,000 Kenyans control 90% of the GDP. We are not a country. We are a plantation. We work for Ruto.
When you're telling the judges court orders are papers or they will not obey court orders, they're sitting and you're seeking orders from them. So how are they supposed to interpret it? Isn't it an oxymoron?
When you see a judiciary that seems to be under some control somewhere, you start questioning. We have very powerful governors, but they don't use their offices to serve the people.
If you are not shameful to do what you are doing, why should we protect you?
I'm human. Everybody's human. So when you're told, kuja tuongee, I mean, you'd be a fool to say, staki kuongea today. Conversations have to be had, you know?
People in leadership should only go into leadership if they are ready and willing to change the lot of the people.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
Good morning, and I love your show.
Thank you.
Having come from a Kikuyu radio background, I migrated to Spice because of the content.
I was born in a slum, but somehow I got a break in life. So sometimes when you see the sweating coming out because of the passion and whatever it is, behind the noise, there are people. And we share the same umbilical cord.
It shouldn't be like that. I am so disappointed. We used to tell Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga that he's doing politics of conmanship. And even President Uhuru Kenyatta, serikali hii ndio iko na conmanship ya hali ya juu. You cannot promise people that you reduce tax, then you double.
In politics, there is the issue of trust. For you to turn around and then stab the same people who gave you that trust, there is no other level of dishonesty. Imabo, utaona dunia tu.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
And it is exactly 10 minutes after 8 a.m. right here on Spice FM. And we are having a conversation this hour that will be touching on matters to do with the land question in the country. And it's all about the Land Amendment Act of 2025. In studio with us is George Kethi, who is a lawyer, Karibu Sana, and Abigail Zwena, who is the real estate policy consultant. So this is among the 8 pieces of legislation that was signed into law by President William Ruto. Just what exactly does this mean? Gentleman and lady, Karibuni Sana.
Asante.
Yeah, and as we just have this conversation, we want to take you guys to Mauritania. Yeah, a country that is rich in copper, gold, fish. Tourism is doing really well. And despite all these, you find the country is rated as being one of the poorest countries in the continent. And one would only hope with all these resources, perhaps they would be doing much, much better for themselves. But they also give us a proverb. He who goes up must come down. He who goes up must come down. Zwena, ladies go first. How would you interpret that?
Thank you so much. First, I'm a big fan, and thank you for having us.
Karibu sana.
I'm always listening to these forums, and I never get it right, but I hope today I do.
You're on the hot seat.
Yes, I am. He who goes up must come down. I'd say it means the higher you go, the more important it is for you to never forget where you've come from and what truly matters. Because when you concentrate so much on the upscale politics and achievements, and you forget the struggles of, just climbing the ladder, you truly miss the point. I'd even reflect it on our president and government to ensure that even as they are navigating power, they should truly never forget their campaign manifesto and what they promised us. And it should reflect in the policies and laws that they are passing. Yes.
Yeah. Wakili, how would you interpret it?
Well, I think man, meaning woman too, is built for seasons. A season to grow up at birth, you have to go to school, you upscale to university or whatever education, you start working. But then, obviously, it comes a time when you have to downscale, either in terms of activities, the robustness on contribution, and inevitably, you have to expire. I mean, we've seen big names expire. So it is basically a very organic proverb, if I have to say, because whether it doesn't matter who you become in life, you will be and you won't be one day.
Yeah. It's like a pendulum. Pendulum will go up, down, and up again. So it's just pretty much speaks about the proverb this morning, Asanteni Sana. Now, Wakili, we talk about the Land Amendment Act of 2025. It is a big conversation piece because many are asking, why should we care about this? We're being told everything. But you tell us, what is Land Amendment Act 2025 and what does it mean to the Mwananchi? Should we be worried that my land will one day just be taken?
I think yes and no. And I say that because in life, we don't need laws. Not even a single law. Because the prescription then would be the ideal that human has a predisposition to the good. And therefore, when you're born as a human being, you're predisposed to the good. And therefore, the adulteration of man's mind, and I say man, I mean woman too, would mean the society is the adulterer of the human person. Confucius theory around the same. So that today, if you see somebody is fallen down, a lady is walking and she falls down, unless you're really cruel, you run to help. The predisposition to help the next human being. It doesn't matter if you're a bank robber. When a lady falls down, you get attracted to what's wrong with this. In the village, when somebody dies, we all congregate to bury, and we come in our thousands, sometimes hundreds. All right. So that's the predisposition of man towards the good. What then adulterates and changes man is basically the competitive environment that the person is prescribed to, on account of the fact that you have to survive in a competitive environment at the lowest, at the highest, whether at the slum or in the city. So eventually, therefore, we carry ourselves within the same confine, the context being we compete every time. And when we do that, we suspect each other, and on account of the fact that there'll be extremes and our elasticity towards the boundaries becomes variegated of sorts. In doing so, then we make rules. Okay? So if I know that I have to drive on the left, I have to drive on the left. But I drive to the left and the right and the left. And therefore, there's a grind lock, and you have to make laws to say everybody drives on the left. Don't steal and take anybody's property. But because it happens, we legislate. So there are two types of legislative approaches which probably are dominant and we use. One is the mischief rule. The mischief rule is what is the mischief that is a possibility in the environment. So I would legislate it against it. All right? So then we say, it's possible that I'm going to steal. So we legislate against theft, right? The other one is the rule will be the natural predisposition of man on account of the fact that let's coexist. And therefore, we make laws basically to say this is the environment that we're going to exist, especially the civil laws on account of economics, how we're going to make budgeting processes, and so on and so forth, right? So that those probably a cocktail of the principle and reasons why we legislate. Now you realize that the coercive laws are the mischief laws, and the others that generally describe relationships between man and government and man in the civil context and not the criminal context are basically slightly, because the usually law is the law, what it says, or prohibits, or coerces you to do something or not to do. But then there's a punishment that's prescribed as against it. So you realize that's the differential that we're looking at. Now come to the land law now. Land law, land is everything. Land is everything, and it includes the air. The land itself, the mass, and the water within the context of land. So that's the composition of land. When you legislate on land, you look at the very coexistence of man. Man must exist on land. Human beings must exist on land. Sorry, Madam, when I talk of man, no I continuously must be seen to be talking of the entire human race. Okay. Now, therefore, when you make laws on land, you're describing how we're going to manage land, the relationship of land ownership, land use, and the mobility of land as an asset that moves, the aesthetical value that moves, because land is land on its utility, and then there's an aesthetical value within the context of land that can move from one person to another, and the legislative environment. And the third one is the relationship between land, the land itself and government, and the landowner and government. When you understand all that, then you realize that the economics of a particular community, society, or even government or country itself is based on land. All industries, everything, whether it's the port, the airport, a road, must be on account of the existence of land. Without it, whether you build something called expressway in the air or something called a tunnel and subway, still the context is land. And therefore, land being everything, when you legislate it, it must mirror everything in the context of the person as a private, the public, and the interactive aspect of the commercial exploitation of land.
And in that specific explanation that you've given, then one would ask the question, when we talk about the Land Amendment Act of 2025 that was passed by the President, we hear a lot of hue and cry out there in terms of there's some changes that have happened in the law that Kenyans are concerned about. So Abigail, I come to you and I ask, why are Kenyans concerned about this law? Mwananchi wa kawaida, why are they feeling like the legislation that is now law itawafinya?
Thank you so much. I think first and foremost, it's important for me to recognize that there was a lot of misinformation and we didn't have a very strategic communication from the ministry and government in regards to what they passed. First, they did it on a day we received the news of the death of the late Right Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga. So everybody panicked. From real estate itself, we felt the one thing that was being communicated across all our platforms, again because the government was not so clear about what had been passed by the president, was that all freehold land is going to be changed into leasehold land. And that spread. That was the first information that the public interacted with. And it's there. It's just not been passed yet by the president. It's been mentioned. And also it's been affected by county assemblies that have passed rural areas into municipality, which again changes how land is in terms of freehold and leasehold, and in terms of even how they pay stamp duty, because some places now are paying 4% because they are no longer just rural spaces, they are now municipalities, and the law is the law, yeah? So the first information Kenyans interacted with was government is changing all freehold land to leasehold, and there was panic. We only got the document that the president signed days later, and people are still not keen on reading it because they were still mourning Baba. So later, after you get that document and you had to really search it, you see they have it's a 4-page document, and what the president ascended was just the changing of, which is still very critical and affect what the NLC does, the National Land Commission, and takes away some powers and gives it to an individual who is a cabinet minister to be a custodian of very important documents, public documents, owing to the fact that the current cabinet minister and her history in terms of land and processes is questionable. And I'll say this because the last engagement we had with the cabinet minister of physical planning land, who is a woman and I respect her a lot, CS Alice Wahome, was her publicly trying to challenge and excuse the presence of her daughter, Wakili Wangeshi, in a land case that had just revoked title deeds of millions of Kenyans in Ruiru, the Kangaita Kanyotu land case. I know it was in the public domain, and very many people talked about it. So now when a whole law has been passed by the president saying the cabinet minister of physical planning, land and housing will be a custodian of very public documents, you now wonder, excuse me, this is not what the law guides. Because there's a whole commission that has the obligation of being custodians of these documents. So that is what the president signed into law. There is the bill that is in parliament, the National Land Commission Amendment Bill. That one is the most chaotic and controversial of them all. One, it wants to enforce and give powers to the NLC to determine, revoke titles of any land that has ever been procured or bought or purchased or possessed by any Kenyan or institution or entity before the 2010 constitution was passed. And they are giving them a time frame of 5 years. So they're like, you deal with all these cases within a period of 5 years. They are protecting them so much and giving them even judicial powers and saying where the NLC open bank account and they can receive money and compensate, nobody can go to court to freeze those accounts or even ask for an accountability of what is happening in those accounts. So one, you are giving them judicial powers to sit, and this is a commission that has been appointed by, again, the same government. They are the ones to be now, sit and judge cases and make very final determinations and rulings. And you can't question them. And other stakeholders of the land and property ecosystem are not present. So in the National Land Commission, we don't have lawyers, we don't have surveyors, we don't have valuers, we don't have mediators, we don't have the real estate stakeholders there, the financial institution, the church. We don't have key people that should be sitting there so that when they're sitting down to discuss and just come up with, determinations, a whole ecosystem has been looked at. We've looked at the innocent buyer. We've looked at the people that are facing an injustice. We've looked at the legal aspect of it. We've looked at the financial institution that offered mortgages in those parcels of land, and so forth and so forth. That, the one that is in Parliament, is actually what the public should be keen to digest, understand, and really fight, in my opinion. Yes.
Okay, Lee. I have a very simple question. Before we go into the legalese of these and the details of these acts, you earlier in your intro talked about, we don't actually need laws as human beings. There is that inherent trait to do good in any environment, but because of greed, then either greed or fear, we end up doing things the way we do. My simple question is, before we go into these details, is I'm just trying to focus on those two things, fear and greed. In this case, whoever then comes up with this, whoever is suggesting this, either means well, or they're driven by something. Who stands to benefit in this? Because listening to what Zwena is saying, it's then very worrying if you're moving the center of decision making from a commission, you're laying it to an individual. Today is Alice Wahome, tomorrow it could be somebody else. It means something. It tells me there's something going on here. Why would you move it from point A to point B? What is the underlying factors here? What are we looking at here? Who is benefiting from this?
I think that's a good question. Very good question. Because in probably highlighting it to the public, this is how I view it. There is no legislation in this country from experience, because I have done bills, private member bills, I have done bills in many contexts. When you are being instructed to draft a bill, including the Attorney General doesn't wake up and do bills. She's instructed. So assuming you are the president instructing me, you're the cabinet secretary instructing me, or you're a sectorial disposition that is instructing me, what are you telling me? So we are from the real estate. This is how we suffer. This is how we want to protect ourselves. We are from the water sector. We have an investment from the World Bank. This is how we're going to protect ourselves. Okay? So continuously, and basically, I think predominantly, we have a constant, being that legislation in this country stems from an interest other than the general good, as you said. Okay? Now, when the instruction, lawyers, we're in a space where you have to be told to do, because that's a client. You have to be told to do. So when the government instructs you to do, it looks at first the context of what happens so the government survives. That's one. But that's a bigger picture. Who is government? The people in government cannot be you and me. It's supposed to be our government, but it's not. We know it's not. So the people in government, therefore, will instruct you to do something in order to preserve a certain status or to enhance a certain advantage. So there is no legislation, believe you me, that is merely general and innocent. It is instructed to be done. It is instructed. So then even a private member bill can be skewed on ethnicity. Look, I'm legislating this because our people. But before it becomes our people, you must have sat with your people and seen how you're going to compete with the rest of the communities to legislate on advantage on your people. It could be because you are positioned in a certain space and we are creating a certain position so that you move from there and you become a DIG or an IG or a director general or something. And therefore you're properly placed to take over that position and you legislate in order for you to take that position. The only innocence I see is when we were doing the constitution. There were many interests, but you see, there was too much general for us to become specific in the construction of our constitution. And therefore you realize that many people got lost. Even if you said, I'm going to put this position so I become the prime minister, I become the deputy president, I become this, it all got lost, all right? Because then there was a lot of the general that then probably suppress the specific. It was very impossible to put a constitutional process with the longevity that it had in terms of its construction for you then to be consistent enough in character and position and obtain what was available for you. Here we have the quick fixes so that you can initiate a legislation now, 2-3 months, 2 weeks, you have it, 3 weeks. The longevity is shorter than a construction of a constitution. And therefore it's possible for you to plan around obtaining the advantage because time is on your side. It could be within the 5 years tenure of a certain regime. So you can legislate and obtain the advantage. I answer you this way, therefore, that this legislation was to obtain advantages to those that were interested in initiating it and having it to be passed in order to become an applicable law within a certain time frame.
Well, Wakili, and you've placed it well that there is a motivation and where it leads and who will benefit from that. Clearly not the public. And Zuena has highlighted that what has already been passed into law is that sort of a nullification of some of the responsibilities or duties of the NLC, and they're being domiciled now to the CS. She becomes the custodian of the title deeds, for example, of the public land. And we all remember there was a huge tiff when these, I have a slip of tongue when I say avoidable housing, but it's the affordable housing, that a lot of governors refused to surrender the public land, hence the title deed, to the CAs, because they felt this is public land and belongs to the people of those specific counties. Now that seems to be overturned, and the governors may not have so much power over securing the land that belongs to the public of their respective constituents. Therefore, I beg to understand as just a regular Kenyan. As you say, these are the beneficiaries, but what is the greatest danger that we are facing as Kenyans? Because public land is meant for establishment of public utilities and amenities. When that is misused now, and we're trying to, in a manner of speaking, address the historical injustices from 1895 to 2010. Are we not creating more injustice based on this very customary, cultural, and emotive asset called land?
Well put. But let me explain to you this, so that I open it up further for you.
Right.
We had a problem with our constitution. That's why we changed it. The biggest problem, although we have many acts and deeds that we say this was wrong, this was done by Moi regime, this was done by Kenyatta regime, this was by whoever, it was there, fine. We can pick out acts, but that's not the point. The point is we are moving from centralism of power to devolution.
Right.
So what we did is we saw on a period of time, 24 years, 30 years, this is what was happening. So let's decentralize power. And I think the biggest problem, and I probably colloquially put it, the beef we had then was saying the president or do I say the executive had more power, less decentralized on matters of land, which is the context here. We then remove the president from the ability, because he had the ability to allocate land, for instance. Then we say cabinet secretary cannot do the following things, okay? And in the constitution, we basically even reprimand and basically prohibit, all right? But then down the line, you realize that in your when you're dispensing and executing your duties as executive, you realize you have bottlenecks. You know, law is not supposed to please anyone, including the executive. It's not supposed to please anyone. It's actually supposed to be an irritant that reminds you every day to confine to a certain policy. Okay? So when we took away the powers of allocation of land and administration of land completely, from the executive and dispatched it in custody of an independent constitutional authority called a commission, National Land Commission. The reason was exactly that, the mischief I was talking about. Now, you go around it and legislate so that then you domicile into the executive again what we said should not be there. In a sense, therefore, apart from that, because the things you can see and things you can see, that which you see being the affordable housing and the problems that come with it, including obtaining of land, because very expensive. You have to go to the private sector and obtain land from there, but the cheap one is the one that is available in the counties. However, what we've done in the constitution, we've given land to the counties, we've given private land, we've given communities. The government, the context of government land is really, really protected in the constitution. Now, what you do is you want to open that up and be able to make access, a penetrative access to those parcels of land, so that then either they are available for your utility. When they are available, you can abuse them if you so wish. Abuse means I can allocate it to you to do, because I have given you the authority. It's legal. You told me I can give you the authority, I can. But we do know, like I've said, there's always an interest behind some of the decisions that are made. So you then can abuse that environment. This law, the suspicion we have on this law is predominantly to abuse it.
And I think then I would ask as the public, because this is public land, this is our asset. Do we have room to appeal? Do we have room for reversal? Do we have room to prevent the reverse of the devolution or gains we have made, such that now this law can be repealed?
Absolutely. Because I do know, in my space, I won't reveal much, but those pieces of legislation that were signed, I think 90%, we are challenging them from the law society perspective. So I do know that because there's a lot of constitutionalism in it. It doesn't conform the constitution. Number two is even the process of legislation, the public, you can see it's strange to most people because the public do not participate in saying you hold an open check for a land tenure system which you bought at the time. You then change it by sheer discretion into what we call a leasehold land. I mean, from freehold and many other things. But remember, even then, because I'm sure nobody legislated with a data on his desk. So there are banks that, for instance, are financial institutions that have invested within a context of a tenure system called freehold. And that is just one, and many other activities on the utility of land. Then you say you're going to convert that on a leasehold. What you are doing is abusing that space. All right.
Abigail, we look at a law that has been broken down here now. It is a legislation that someone wants to take advantage of to do whatever it is they want to do with it. But if you just look at what that means now to sector players, so let's look at real estate, let's look at farmers out here. And here is a situation where if I want to do anything with my land, the cabinet secretary must have a say. I could be right or wrong. Here's a question where these powers that Kenyans, in their own knowledge, decided to give these powers to the National Land Commission, NLC. These powers have been taken away from the NLC. And one asks the question, if NLC does not have this power, what is their role? And what does that then mean to the decision that Kenyans made to have that embedded in the constitution as a safeguard from abuse that Wakili is talking about? So just bring us up to speed in terms of, you want to put up apartments.
Yes.
How do you go about it?
Actually, there's also another side I'd want to look at as I answer your question, because when they say public land, the biggest fight we have at the county level as private developers with the county government is the understanding of what public land is. For example, you have 5 acres. Then you want to do a controlled estate, build a few mansionettes or bungalows, Then you have to allocate some public utilities for the residents inside there. So you want to put for them a clubhouse or a green space for them to just chill, as is the requirement of the law. What the county government, most county governments have been doing is saying, no, that is public land. You're supposed to surrender it to us. It's the biggest. We are in court with them. Like in Kiambu County, we are constantly always fighting with Governor Wamatangi on the same. Yeah. And so when we now vest powers to the cabinet minister to say she's a custodian of public land and very key documentation, it is even giving her that power to say and come inside our private sector of real estate and say, it is in our own view that this is public land. And so then we will again start asking, based on the provision of the law on how government can do compulsory acquisition, are you guys going to buy this land from us? And of course that will not be the case. They'll say no, because they can also even stop your title processing of that specific estate because you have not surrendered what? Public land. So it will affect common mwananchi like that. Even as you're doing your subdivision, hereditary subdivision, you want to just give your kids land. And in the county that you're operating from, they've already said, like in Kiambu County, they say any acres are 50 acres and above. This is a county bylaw that was passed that we are contesting in court in conjunction with LSK. We are happy they've agreed to enter into a constitutional petition with us because they say 50 acres and above, 20% you have to surrender as public land. So then it's now giving the cabinet minister now right over private property. And again, that contradicts the rights of private property ownership in Kenya. So how will that affect the real estate industry? One, first and foremost, that uncertainty that titles will not be processed because there's a friction of what is private land, what is public land, and government outrightly just stops your processes. So financial institution can't offer mortgages. Investors will not buy in an industry that has uncertainty of the title. And so many, during this regime, we've seen titles being revoked left, right, and center. We can no longer brag or securely say as an industry we can trust title processing processes or a title deed is supreme. That is down the drain completely. And then this other aspect has come to being that a cabinet minister can sit in her office, look around the country, and in retrospect just decide what is public land and take it. And if they won't take it, they'll force you to give it out because they will not issue you with title deeds. They will just frustrate you. And that destabilizes our industry, which affects the financial institution because they will not offer mortgages on an industry that is quite uncertain and quite unstable
and that would mean as well to a private citizen that I have my own land. I want to develop it. I've gone to a bank to ask for a mortgage, a facility. But with that, the bank has the requirements. I have to surrender title deed. But the cabinet secretary has said this is public land. That means a lot of individuals in this country would not be able to continue with their normal lives and businesses because the cabinet secretary has decided that your land is public land. Am I right?
Yes, it boils down to that.
So then, in terms of now the development of the real estate, because I think the largest consumer of more of the urban land, both private and seemingly public, because by proxy the amenities that are public are enjoyed by the private by the citizens. Yes, it's true, it affects how now the operations are running because you're a bit hesitant to invest. The financiers are hesitant to invest. But what would be your basis now as an industry, even beyond the revert, if you're successfully able to reverse this law, how do you have safeguards moving into the future? Because we've had cases, you mentioned the one from Roiro.
Yes.
And I think sometimes last year we had the other one in Njeri, which was like 3,000 acres.
Yes.
Kenyans, innocent Kenyans just come out, somebody is selling land, you buy, it's not even titled, you get a certificate because the office assures you we are still in the process. You buy, you invest, you build a school sometimes. It's a private school, it's licensed by the government, and you must have proved ownership of the land when you are getting all these licenses to operate. Then years later, or months later, or sometimes later, the same government comes and says, this land has dispute, you have to vacate because according to the court, this is the person who is now the rightful owner. How does that safeguard both the investor, the seller, and now we anchor it in law?
Actually, the only place where we get a lot of sort of justice is the court system. And we are very happy with that. That's why we are very worried when we see a whole acting government wanting to centralize a lot of powers to the NLC to decide on very, serious and sensitive cases. But the most amazing thing is how government always gets out of it scot-free. And they are the center of land searches. You search land through the same government. They are the custodian of these processes. Yes. You pay stamp duty to them. Land rates are paid to the same government. But when revocation of titles happen, they are exonerated from any liability. They do not play a role in compensating the innocent investor. Actually, the investor is taken back to the drawing board by the court to renegotiate again with the aggrieved party and pay again. The most the court does is try and lessen the burden and say, please don't charge them the market value, be fair, and give them a longer payment period. But then it still boils down to now you as an individual, Dennis, you go now renegotiate again with the family that and say, mutanilipisha pesa ngapi? Mutanipea tu, unaanza kulipa tena afresh. That and just excusing government from their role is the most obnoxious thing we've ever seen in this country, and it completely destabilizes our industry as real estate, because this is the same government we run to do our searches. It's the same government that financial institutions go, because most people feel safe when you buy from a development that is charged from a bank. But we've seen even the bank processes are no longer safe, because even in the Ruto case, there were banks, financial institutions, SACCOs, banks that were involved and gave mortgages. So are we saying even their processes are defective? And then when everything falls apart, government is there effecting.
So they lacks institutional responsibility.
Completely.
So, Wakili, a while back, I think it is Kibaki's regime, they said, or the onset of the Huru regime, that idle land ought to be utilized to plant trees or something, lest you start incurring some tax, which came out as some sort of revenge or vendetta against people who owned big chunks of land that were idle. And yet, in the same constitution, gives me rights to own as much property as I can, because it's a capitalist system that we have, so long as it's within the law. But now, looking at all these balancing of the historical injustices of land, privatization of the beaches, we're beginning to see that. What, in terms of legislation, what would be the ideal situation when it comes to land management for our country, Kenya?
I think the problem we've created for ourselves as a country is to give aesthetical value to land, and that aesthetical value is transferable from one person to another. The custody of land ought to be, all land is to the public. You can only have utility within a certain safeguard or timeline. And therefore, everything has to be on lease for government and the people of Kenya, because eventually we can't have the entire country as private land, and therefore its management becomes an account of supervising private people on how can they use the land. But since we are already there, the capital element, and this is from inception, when the country was handed over to us by the white man had passed land on account of certain fiefdoms that belonged to them individually. And therefore you take from a white man an existing regime. By the way, after independence, when we had our own constitution, we transited 100% of the colonial laws, 100%, and those are clauses that we put, that all laws that exist pre-independence shall remain laws applicable to all Kenyans. Up to today, meaning therefore all land laws then transited with us. Of course, we've had quite some turmoil in terms of amending them until what we have today. So, problem is, private rights are private rights. For instance, if today you left this employment and were paid 8 million, and you said you can put 8 million in a fixed deposit account, seems good. But look at the dangers, and they're like, but look here, I come from a certain area, there's some 50 acres being sold, that 50 acres can pay 8 million. I think that's cheap. 50 acres for 8 million, no. Hell no, I need only 10. But the other 40, let me invest in them. When my son gets to university, I'll have money, I will sell and educate him. Isn't that utility of land? So why do you tell me I have to plant trees? I mean, I don't have to put money in a SACCO, I don't have to put money in a bank. I have bought land so that I can sell it. You are the one who said I can transfer land for value, so that I can sell it, and then I can educate my children abroad, because that's what I want. That's my investment, is in that utility of land. So why tell me what to do with my land? It's private property. I can do what I want. And by the way, buying land and living idle is an investment, because one day it will appreciate or depreciate. I can invest shares in some Nairobi Stock Exchange. It can go up, it can go down. So don't tell me what to do with my money, provided I've paid your taxes. But because it's an asset, there must be a point upon which I'm responsible to government for asset, because it is maintaining security maybe. There's water supply and piping and all that. I agree with that there must be a tax element to it at transactional point. You see, there must be an output on a tax, a dispensing. So when I buy water, VAT, blah, 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 blah. When I go eat in a restaurant, I pay taxes. There must be a dispensing point, an output of sorts. So when I'm having my land and I'm idle, don't tell me produce so that we get taxes from it. No, wait until I sell it. Wait until I'm constructing it. Wait until the day that I'm taking my child to university and I sell the 40 acres that I've told you contextually here. Then you're going to get your money.
And I think,
but don't tell me you're going to tax me for waiting for the day that will tax me again. I mean,
you know, there is a landowner here, Okari. You're boiling nicely.
Not me, I feel I'm going to get affected. And my questions are very, very basic. My questions are this as well. For someone who owns land, let's say 5 acres, 10 acres, for purposes of speculation, you've just purchased the land, you have your title deeds. Maybe you're thinking in the next 5 years, 10 years, I'll subdivide these, sell to people. And like you earlier said, maybe I want to give this to my son, to my daughter, this person, that person. I'm not developing. I'm just buying it, keeping it, speculating. I'm not planting trees. That's not my intention. For however long I want to do it, 10 years, 20 years. And let's say it's a freehold land. You've paid all the taxes that you need to pay. You have your title deeds. How are people, because a lot of Kenyans do that. A lot of Kenyans have bought land. Ukwati River, you go Syokimau, Ruiru, Thika, Suswa, you go these sides of Kitengela. There's a lot of development happening. And there are people who are taking their pension to just buy land, build their retirement homes. How is this law going to affect these people? How are they going to get affected by this?
I think what the law is saying, and ideally what the law is, of course, you always have to do your due diligence on the land that you're buying. And of course, you do a search, but the court is now saying go further and look at the transfer history, so that there is nothing fishy that happened in that transfer process. And they've done this in their presidential cases, like the one in Ruiru, the Kirima case. They said, no, you guys should have been keen enough to look at the green card, see if there was any irregularities in transfer from company A to B and so forth. So it means the public has to be a little bit more vigilant in their due diligence processes. So you can't just rely on a land search anymore. Even if it means going to talk to the village drunk, because they always have the history. I'm in real estate, and there are some, stakeholders I can't ignore. First, do your due diligence in the right way and ensure you've covered everything, so that you are not purchasing land that has ever been perceived as public. That's one. Or there is even any room for government to show up and say, this is public land. Because that's it, you lose your land. It's as simple as that. And it will mean either they agree you stay if you haven't made any development, and you purchase again from them. That is what it means. 2, it also depends on which county you are in, because also counties have passed their own laws. For example, in Kiambu, where I operate and I'm able to guide, I can tell you if you have a 5-acre land, there's some percentage of land you need to surrender to agriculture. That's what Wamatangi is saying, because he wants to improve and sort of just spearhead the agriculture agenda. So like a 10% of it, you have to dedicate it for agriculture. Is he going to support you for agricultural practices? No, he's not promising you that. But he just wants to come out of that 5 acres as you're subdividing, iko shamba ya agriculture, apate iko kitu tu unaeka. So in his own thinking, he knows once he does that, he has supported agriculture. We have reclaimed agricultural land, which goes against every rule of decongesting Nairobi, because Kiambu is the bedroom of Nairobi. but that is a county law. You need to be cognizant of what other counties are passing in regards to ownership of land. And even in spaces where the law is very clear, you cannot pass a county law that contradicts the constitution. They are doing it. And unless people are woke and they are able to go and contest it in court, they are getting away with it. This has even gone further in terms of land rates payment. There was an act that was passed into law, the National Rating Act, that gives counties more powers. That if you're not paying land rates, they can put your land under receivership. Dennis. So to get to EV 2, 3, 4 years, you've not paid them, you'll find it under receivership and they're selling off your land, right?
Yeah.
It says that.
So Akili, like what Osman is saying, okay, so you have a Land Amendment Act. Then you have now counties deciding, okay, if you have, in the case of Kiambu, you have more than 50 acres of land, you give how much?
20%,
You just
10
give
to 20%.
20.
Yes, for
You give-
agriculture. Yes.
You're giving the county, or you're doing what?
No, you
hive off 20
You hive it for
for
agriculture,
agriculture.
and they send enforcement officers to actually ensure that you're doing that.
So for people who already own land, like I said, for speculation, or maybe at some point you want to put up apartments, this Amendment Act, how does it affect the people who already own land? Whether it's 5 acres, 10 acres, 20 acres, whichever part of this country they belong to.
I think we should talk about the potential effect, right? Being that we've handed over discretionary powers to government officials on matters, private property, especially land. One, the government I have seen has enforced something called the doctrine of escapement. The doctrine of escapement is where you have land. It's called idle land because you're not there every day, right? That's the perception and conception of the word idle land. So you move to, let me just give a theoretical example, to CNN for 25 years, 18 years. Your children go to school there and everything.
Yeah.
Now you're coming back to Kenya. So is idle land in the context 3 years or 7 years? Or those 25 years that you say at CNN and you work in the US, all right? So when you come back, the discretion, the cabinet secretary has a right to declare it idle, and therefore the doctrine of escapement is where the government can repossess your land.
And I bought that land.
Yes.
And
it can
my title.
yes, it can repossess your land where you haven't claimed within a certain period of time. All right.
What does
Number two. So somebody dies, and then you can't find a relative to take the land immediately, because some kids can go to the US and stay. And by there, of course, it's a problem if you abandon your parents and you don't talk to them. But that can happen. So when you come back here, doctrine of escapement set in and the land was taken. So the danger is rife. It's available. It's immediate. It can affect everyone. Then the most important thing is, probably even worse, is the discretionary powers to say this is freehold, it's going to be leasehold at a discretion. Obviously, because of obtaining circumstances at the discretion of a powerful cabinet secretary on management of land, because we've made an absolute power out of a cabinet secretary for
this conversation where it's leading, for the last 1 hour, from my reading, and I will dare say this, from my reading, this thing, you vest all these powers to a CS. Who is a CS answerable to?
The president.
The president.
Political
who assented, who actually passed this?
President.
Is the president. So this CS can make a decision without consulting anyone that I'll cut off a chunk of a piece of land in whichever part of this country, let's say 20 acres, and I can declare that land to be idle, like you said, whether it's 2 years, it's 3 years, or take public land and give it to whoever wants to own your shamba, sinikweli.
And do affordable housing.
And do affordable housing and build up apartments or hotels or whatever. That's essentially what you're saying. This gives the CS powers then to decide to come and take Zuena's piece of land and build whatever they want to build.
Yes.
I think you're being nice. I think you're being nice.
Please
Why
go
don't you
all
say
in.
it gives the president powers because the president instructs the CS. So simply we are vesting back
Power to the
president, which we took away
because that's
from
what
the
I'm saying.
constitution.
The CS answer is
answerable to the president. So
in essence,
the
it's
language
president.
the language should be what we should be seeing is the president is obtaining power through the CS.
Yes.
In of course in layers, but obviously it cascades from him to
The
downward.
president is taking us back to pre-2010 constitution.
But of course, we're vesting power back to the president.
So in my opinion, as a person who is not a lawyer like you, this seems like a rogue land operation scheme that is out to defraud and mislead Kenyans and the land management of our land as a country.
Put it the other way, I think it's a politician's decision, so a leader's decision. So the politicians would want to thrive, dominant, basically dominate over society, conquer and dominate. That's really what is happening here. The process is purely to conquer and dominate on the populace, as opposed to the leadership, the intrigues of management of land in the private context, vis-a-vis complementing investment, the economics of land, and obviously sorting out the historical injustice, because there's so much to do on the land area as opposed to legislating on this. And number 4, what was the urgency? What is it that was supposed to be fixed until you pass such laws? What is it that you intend to achieve? If you ask you and me, there's no clarity except something mischievous that we don't know.
Seems like you want to make Zuena a subsistence farmer.
Yes.
And it is a conversation that we must have, because you look at even what our listeners are saying here, that mambo imechemuka, and a solution to that is I know there is a matter in court, and perhaps a conversation that needs to continue for people to continue speaking, but most importantly is we must have a plan.
Let me caution this, probably sorry to cut you short. If it annoyed people that a bill was increasing taxes, they should annoy people even more. Because it's a lifelong problem.
Okay. Okari,
well,
you have a plan.
Then there it means we have to make plans.
Yes.
So you are here listening to this show and you're thinking, okay, so what's going to be my next investment? Shamba, what do I do? There's another person who's already thinking about, okay, my retirement plan. So with these conversations and what we are seeing around the country, how do I then plan for my retirement? Well, I see a Lion is going to make that very easy for you. It's never too early and it's never too late to start planning. So I see as a plan for everyone. So my question is, what's your plan? Now, here you could be thinking insurance and or investment options that help you grow, protect, and plan with confidence. I see a Lion helping you secure you today and build you tomorrow. What's your plan? Think about that.
Yeah. In studio, Judge Kithi, lawyer, Abigail Zuena, real estate policy consultant, and they say lazima tukasirike zaidi. It is 9 a.m.
It is now 9 a.m. with ICEA Lion. Insurance and investment made simple for people like you, courtesy of ICEA Lion.
The latest news from around the world. 94.4 Spice FM.
This is the Newswire. I'm Edwin Lisamira. There's been drama at the River, Machakos County, after officials from the Tailors and Textile Workers Union stormed one of the textile manufacturing company to know the fate of workers who were allegedly mistreated by the company management. Led by the organization's Secretary General, Reverend Joel Chebi, the officers demanded to know why senior management at the Shangcheng Kenya Paro EPZ Limited allegedly dismissed more than 2,000 workers without considering paying their dues. A commotion ensued between the officers, police, and the company management, who are Chinese investors, after Chebi forcibly entered the premises located along the Nairobi-Mombasa highway. These workers have been speaking to our reporter.
Tunanyanyaswa vibaya sana na hii kampuni. Sana. Kwanza tukiwa shift ya usiku, wamama wanateseka sana. Tunaingia saa 12, tunatoka hapa saa 5 usiku, saa mchana. Kutoka saa 12 jioni mpaka asubuhi. Na pesa hakuna. Unakatakata una saa zote unaambiwa kata money. Warning. Sasi kila siku tunaenda sasi unapata mshahara ni kidogo, yote unakatakata unakuja unapata zero.
Matusi unatusiwa Chinese, lugha ambayo huwezi elewa, na hiyo ni kinyume pia cha sheria, na sheria inaturuhusu pia wafanyikazi pia kuwa na union, na wakati tumedemand union, wafanyikazi wamedemand union, wanakatazwa.
The workers also questioned the presence of a contingent of police officers who were deployed in the factory to intimidate and kick them out.
Tulipoingia ndani ya kiwanda tulipata maaskari ndani ya kampuni. Kwa kila line askari amesimama na bunduki. So tumeshindwa tutafanya kazi vipi wakati tumesimamiwa na askari na bunduki. Hiyo inamaanisha kwamba hatuko free hata kufanya hiyo kazi. Tuko under pressure. So maombi yetu tunaomba kwamba union ingilie kati. Maana waliposikia kwamba wafanyikazi wameingia union ndio tumetolewa kama umbwa. Wameajiri mapolisi wengi hapa ndani.
Our reporter says some of the officers had their faces covered to hide their identity, and at one time, one of them threatened to open fire and shoot his cameraman who was filming the commotion. The spouses of governors from Kenya's 47 counties have come together to speak with one voice in a renewed commitment to eradicate female genital mutilation completely. The initiative is being spearheaded by Edna Lenku, the First Lady of Kajiado County and spouse of Governor Joseph Lenku, who hosted a landmark event during the ongoing Ma Cultural and Tourism Festival Week in Amboseli. The event brought together First Ladies under the County First Ladies Association, as well as the spouses of Kajiado MCS, national and county government officials, civil society organizations, and development partners. Speaking during the event, Edna Lenku commended the community for embracing positive cultural transformation, as other invited guests emphasized that ending FGM is a shared responsibility.
Mimi nawapongeza sana wote kwa sababu tumeandika lile kibao tukasema hatutaki ukeketaji.
And I also like to appreciate the all these first ladies across the country. Since I arrived in Kenya, I think it's my first time to see this diverse representation from all over the country, from all the counties. I'm very sure that you are here for the common goal.
Detectives in Vihiga County have arrested a police officer in connection with the killing of his colleague in August. The suspect, who is accused of the fatal shooting of Constable Nicholas Samoei, was arrested in Luanda on Tuesday. He'd been on the run for more than 2 months. The wife of a Malaysian pastor abducted 8 years ago has won a lawsuit against the police and the government in a landmark case that has gripped the nation. Raymond Ko was pulled out of his car by masked men in a suburb of the capital Kuala Lumpur in 2017. His whereabouts remain unknown. His family has long maintained he was taken by police. On Wednesday, the High Court ruled he'd been forcibly disappeared, with the judge holding the government and police responsible for his abduction. It's Malaysia's first such judgment. That's the Newswire. I'm Edwin Lisamira.
.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
In this country, 6 families and 8,000 Kenyans control 90% of the GDP. We are not a country. We are a plantation. We work for Ruto.
When you're telling the judges court orders are papers or they will not obey court orders, they're sitting and you're seeking orders from them. So how are they supposed to interpret it? Isn't it an oxymoron?
When you see a judiciary that seems to be under some control somewhere, you start questioning. We have very powerful governors, but they don't use their offices to serve the people.
If you are not shameful to do what you are doing, why should we protect you?
I'm human. Everybody's human. So when you're told, kuja tuongee, I mean, you'd be a fool to say, stagi kuongea. Conversations have to be had, you know?
People in leadership should only go into leadership if they are ready and willing to change the lot of the people.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
One of the things that are ailing our country is negative ethnicity. You find you as a state officer, instead of thinking as a Kenyan, you think like a tribal person.
Let me tell you something. The biggest problem we have had in this country is a leadership deficit. There is nothing that you are going to do in the process of change if you are not a risk taker. So you really have to pursue your vision to a logical conclusion and even be ready to step on people's toes.
When it comes to the economy, you can run away with it. They say statistics are like bikinis. They reveal a lot, but they conceal the vitals. And so government people would throw statistics at you and tell you they're revealing a lot of information to you, but it's really concealing the real vitals.
We need to get out of that, because when we want to grow our democracy, one basic thing that really requires to be understood by the political class, by all of us, is institutions are critical.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Good morning, and I love your show.
Thank you.
Having come from a Kikuyu radio background, I migrated to Spice because of the content.
I was born in a slum, but somehow I got a break in life. So sometimes when you see the sweating coming out because of the passion and whatever it is, behind the noise, there are people. And we share the same umbilical cord.
It shouldn't be like that. I am so disappointed. We used to tell Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga that he's doing police of conmanship. And even President Uhuru Kenyatta, serikali hii ndio iko na conmanship ya hali ya juu. You cannot promise people that you reduce tax, then you double.
In politics, there is...
The following takes place from 6 a.m. to 10.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
And it is 9 minutes after 9 a.m. You are listening to Spice FM. We continue with conversations here. Remember, Spice FM, Kenya's biggest conversations. And right here, we are going to talk about matters to do with money laundering in the country and terrorism. And to have that discussion is Dr. Laxmana Kiptoo, who is a development expert and Director General, Public Benefits Organization Regulatory Authority. Welcome, sir. You are on Kenya's biggest conversation, that is the hot seat. But before we get to that, I would just want to take you to Mauritania, a beautiful country, a country that is rich in resources. What resources are we talking about? We're talking about copper, we're talking about oil, we're talking about iron ore, and this is what they are exporting and continue to push the economy and improve on the same. However, it is still being rated as being one of the poorest countries in the continent, and one would look at the resources they have and hope that the economy would be much better, but there is always hope with regard to that. But let's go to the proverb. He who goes up must come down. How would you interpret that?
Thank you very much, and I want to thank you for having me here. I would interpret that by saying that he who goes up must come down. Is that you've got to come to the level, if you've given a position of authority, then you've got to come down to the level of the people you serve, so that you are not there alone, so that you are able to be in touch with the people, you are able to be in touch to the ground. I don't know how to say about that. Yeah.
They say kwa ground mambo huwa ni different, so you must know what the ground is saying.
Sure.
So that
Sure.
Yeah. And as we just dive straight into the conversation now, terrorism, financing, and money laundering is a conversation in the country. The laws have been passed to be able to address these. Institutions have been put in place to address all these as well. But it is not just a Kenyan problem, it is a universal problem. So when we talk about money laundering and terrorism financing, especially using non-profit organization, what exactly are we looking at? How dire is the situation?
Yeah, thank you very much. This is a conversation actually that we first of all have to understand from the FATF point of view, and we need to understand that what we are dealing with is enshrined in Recommendation 8 of FATF. Recommendation 8 talks about governments putting in place mechanisms to ensure that non-profit organizations are not used for terrorism financing, and all those measures that are put in place should be able to be, first of all, proportionate, and it should not inhibit the good works that NPOs carry out, the charitable works they do. And so in Kenya, we've done an assessment. Our assessment of the NPO sector in Kenya, the risk is medium low. It's not very high. That's the report that was carried out last year across the country by government in collaboration together with the non-governmental organizations, who we now refer to as, in our context, public benefit organizations. Remember, we are in transition, and our NGOs, so to say, per se, in the country, now we are referring all of them as public benefit organizations, following the operationalization of the Public Benefit Organization Regulatory Act of 2013.
When you say the threat in the country is medium-low, what does medium-low mean? What are the other categories? Do we have extreme high? Do we have danger? Do we have extreme low? Do we have non-existent? So when you say medium-low in the context of Kenya, what exactly does that mean, would be the question.
Thank you very much. Medium-low means we are not immune, or we are susceptible to terrorism financing. That in Kenya, the area, the NPO sector has been liberal for a very long time. You can rise up today in our country, get 5 people, get a constitution, get militants. You say you want to operate in Lamu. You want to carry out NGO activities, targeting the people of Lamu County, and you will approach government, and you will go through the rigors of registration, which we do as an authority, and we will give you, by the fact that you are a Kenyan, you want to go out there, solicit for funds, carry out a public activity. When you go out there and seek funds, we will not control you. You will approach several donors, and there are donors out there, and they will give you the money. Some donors will tell you, yes, we are able to fund that activity. And because of our understanding of our people, there is, and with that goodwill, the intention, they will gladly receive the money and they will engage with the activity. But if it will continue, the donor, if the donor has an ulterior motive, and if the donor actually would want you to support Al-Shabaab activities or support people who are supporting Al-Shabaab, because that's our major threat in the country. The terrorism activities and attacks that we have been majorly from Al-Shabaab, And remember, we have moved away from profiling the Muslim or the Islamic community that they are, or the Somali community as Al-Shabaab. In Kenya right now, you can have a Kalenjin like me who is a member of Al-Shabaab. You can have someone from Western. You can have someone, so not necessarily a Muslim, not necessarily a Somali. So that is why we are saying it's low medium. Apart from Al-Shabaab and the ISIS people, you've had people that they've vanished, they've joined the ISIS area, and the numbers are low. So with that assessment that we carried out, we could confidently say, and that was a scientifically carried out study, that we are not, it is, the threat is not serious, that not all NGOs in the country are. But what we are now doing is, we are doing sensitization and awareness, which actually we are required to do as an authority, to inform all the NPOs in the country, all the BPOs in the country, that they should be aware that there is a possibility they can be used, because nothing is absolute. Yeah.
I mean, Kipto, does this extend to domestic terrorism? Because you've mentioned Al-Shabaab, you've mentioned ISIS. And the reason I ask that is just recently, Kenya's found itself in a situation where, for example, the president the other day said Ford Foundation was funding the Gen Zs on the streets to do what they were doing, in reference to now what later we saw as young people going to court under terrorism charges. Does this terror financing then extend to domestic terrorism?
If indeed it is proved that the damage they caused, if it was about sabotage, and if it is proven beyond reasonable doubt that a certain organization funded a group of people to cause a particular damage, or to target a specific economic activity, or to target specific institution. But from where we are, we have not, we cannot ascertain that from as an authority. Within the NPOs, we do not have any particular NPO that we are saying right now they are responsible for this. But from the authorities' point of view. But
what Okari is referring to is a statement that was made by none other than the President of the Republic at the time. So one would have hoped that the President had sufficient information and intelligence to support his allegations, you know. So at what point then does one sit and say, we consider these to be funding terrorism and these does not? Because remember, Kenyans we're talking about today that were taken to court were charged on terrorism charges. And remember, that statement came from the president saying Ford Foundation was the one who were funding these individuals who were charged with terrorism. How do you differentiate the same so that we do not lump people where they do not belong, and that those who are rightfully so found to be guilty are taken through the process and not playing politics?
Yes, I don't want to draw myself to that direction, possibly because of two reasons. Yeah. Number one, we've got INGOs in this country that operate under the host country agreements. So I'll not be competently able to talk about them. I will only competently talk about the BPOs or the NGOs that we regulate ourselves, you know. And also I'd be wading into an area where, you know, there are security organs in this country who would be in a position to speak about that, and because I was not private, and let's not make it a because that I can say that one is a political statement. But I know that the INGOs operating under host country agreements have rules and regulations that they need to abide to, which is a little bit different from the PPOs that we regulate from the authority.
All right. Well, we don't want to feign interfere. However, because this authority also seeks to serve Kenyans.
Yes.
And in line with what Dennis is asking, it may help to maybe progressively to consider how much the authority could chime in terms of charges that are preferred against Kenyans in regard to purported terrorism acts. Because, of course, you are regulatory, you do control, you do observation. It may be helpful to maybe widen the scope so that we don't have also innocent Kenyans who are getting into what you'd call a civic space to agitate for democracy or otherwise, and then only to end up being charged with terrorism acts that are not necessarily within the profile of what a terrorism act may look like. That might be something to look into. However, I hear what you're saying, and it sounds very prudent that you are seeking to minimize like radicalization and recruitment into terror acts, which we need as a country for our own security and safety. But I'm wondering how perhaps we will be able to manage, from your perspective, some of these organizations come in form of religious institutions. And you'll hear, I know the biggest profiling has been along the Muslim community. But you'll see installation or construction of masjid, schools, and those become, the hotspots of recruitment. How do you sort of control or intervene when such cases are happening? If in my community they're setting up a masjid and we are not really sure where that is coming from.
Yeah. Again, that's with the religions is in the institutions. It's out of my purview. But what we are doing from the authority together with the NPOs is that right now we have an NPO working group comprising of ourselves, some investigative agencies, and the BBOs. In fact, the last 2 weeks we were in Machakos, and we've developed an assessment tool, which we are required by FATF to develop. Then number 2, also we develop what's called the monitoring framework for us to be able to monitor activities of PBOs and NBOs, including religious activities, so that we don't wake up one morning and we have a shagahola kind of thing, So that monitoring framework, together with the assessment tool, we will be validating it next week on Thursday, so that we'll now be able to number 1 is to be able to use it going forward together with the NPOs, because if you don't have an assessment tool, you cannot be able to pinpoint and say this particular religious group or this particular organization is engaged in terrorism financing when you do not have the measurement parameters. But number 2 also, now what we are required is that the monitor. So beside the tool now we have the monitoring framework, and the reason is twofold. Number 1 is that we are able to protect legitimate NPOs from carrying out the activities. But number 2 also, we are able to observe the human rights and an organization that agitate for transparency and accountability and all that, so that we can be able to shield them. So it's twofold. We protect them and from abuse, and also we give them a platform to be able to engage in the activities. Yes.
To most Kenyans, money laundering is wash.
Wash, yes.
So what is money laundering?
And by the way, that is also an area that the recommendation 8 has not waded into so much, because money laundering is a process of using illicit, of turning over illicit money, that are acquired through illegal means. Then you need to clean them, and it has a process. You get the money in the country, and then you invest that money in legitimate business. Yeah. Then you now through a process called the layering, and that money that was illicit now generates revenue in income activity. You get money, build a mall. Once you build a mall, you rent shops, and you get your rent from the shops. And it you have cleaned the money. Sort
You
of.
see, Dr. When we talk about money laundering, but that would call for investigations that need to happen. When you talk about terrorism financing, there is investigation that needs to happen. And this as well needs to bring everyone on board. It includes Kenyans, just so they understand the intrigues on whoever is coming in their locale, in their spaces, to say, I'm here to offer aid, I'm here to offer education, I'm here to offer jobs. I am here to ensure that I uplift you from point A to point B, right? And with this then would call for a multi-agency approach. So who else are you working with to ensure that investigations are done when it comes to matters to do with money laundering? Perhaps Parliament is involved. Who are you working with to ensure that you win, and it's not just a policy, that it is not just a directive that is with a certain authority, but that everyone, including Kenyans, are on board in addressing these issues?
Actually, thank you very much. You know, the whole process of FATF and monitoring illicit flows currently is multi-sectoral. We have the banks, which are the regulators. Central Bank is there, CMA, Asset Recovery. We have DCI, we have NIS, we have the EACC. When the ICRG group actually meet, it is wider, it's multi-sectoral, including actually the latest people that we have on board is PAC members, members of the working group, national working group, and also the Law Society of Kenya. So it is not, and that's why, as from the point of when we are only dealing with NPOs, but also all the other sectors we are together, include even when we were developing the tool that I mentioned all of last week, all of those representatives were there, including BRS, because they also regulate they also regulate the sector, and there are organizations that also do charity organizations there, even companies limited by guarantee. So all of us are working together so that no one is left behind. And a good number of Kenyans, not from government in those areas that I've talked about, were informed.
You know, Okari is a security guy. In the sense that he's covered security for a very long time.
I'm just listening to you, and I'm remembering there was a time where a lot of forex bureaus were being used as channels of this money for terrorism. And several were actually shut down. I'm just curious, at the moment, what are the industries that you can consider the highest risk zones or sectors for laundering money and being used as channels of also channeling this money for terror financing? At the moment, there was a period when forex bureaus were being used a lot. You mentioned that a lot of NGOs and sometimes charitable organizations are used in this. But at the moment, what are the sectors that you're observing?
Including even real estates, real estates, casinos, and that is an area that the lawyers are still grappling with. How do we bring on? You are right, the casinos, the real estates. It can also be a channel. As we are focusing on the NPOs, non-profit organization, including, although not so much the CPO, the NPOs, the big organizations, the national and the international ones. It can be diverse, You cannot confine yourself to a particular sector.
Industry.
Yes. And that's why we are widening those, bringing on board all those people, When I talk about the Law Society of Kenya, for example, and I'd wish that you invite them to come also. That's also an area that's been widely used, and they are coming up with a framework on how they can be able to counter this, So, but just to confine myself to to my area.
Is the NPOs?
Is the NPOs. That is what we are doing, and we are working closely together with all the NPOs in the country. We now have a platform, we have a forum where we talk together, and we are in these issues together. Last week, part 1, we were together with the civil societies. We had been invited by a group called the Civic Advisory Hub in Botswana, and we were together with Muhuri and several NPOs in the country, where we are advancing this within our sector, that we are saying we need to be careful of our donors. We need to be careful about the conditions that the donor would give you, that I'd want you to engage in this activity, and because when an organization is formed, it has its own objectives, it has its own area of scope. But at times, when you get a donor, you will easily tell you, could you please expand to this area? And because organizations need money, they will easily say, okay, we'll consider. And in the spirit of expanding your scope, expanding your mandate, you'll find yourself now engaging in those activities to please your donor, and to meet those conditions for you to attract more funding. Remember, the funding space has been shrinking. Yeah, remember, and that's why within the BPO authority, the Act now gives opportunities for NPOs so that they can be able to be sustainable. It gives them room for them to engage in business activities, income generating activities, so long as whatever will be accrued will be plowed back into the activities of the organization.
But that is assuming what you're saying, and it's very good. But that's assuming donor A is channeling funds to this agency.
Yeah.
And it's within the legal channel. So there's money trail.
Yes.
So then, therefore, you're able then to track the source of funding, the organization itself, what it stands for, and the activities that the money then is being spent on.
Yes.
Then that way you're able to try and pinpoint areas where you can say, okay, there is financing that is going to activities that are not very, very clear.
Yeah.
Then investigate and find out whether these are terror-related activities, and therefore finance is going there. But there's a counter-argument. And in today's age of AI, artificial intelligence, you also have criminals that have become very sophisticated in the sense that the use of technology then keeps changing every day. So today, you're talking about crypto.
Yeah.
You're talking about e-wallets, blockchain. How ready are our regulators for these new technologies that keep emerging to fight financial crime, money laundering, and track terror financing? Because we know a lot of times government systems and regulators play catch-up.
Yeah.
So you have these criminals who are 10 steps ahead, and they're thinking, wait a minute, I don't even need a registered company. Get a briefcase company, shell company, whatever it is that you're going to get. But then instead of moving this money through the ordinary channel, through the banks, as we know them, let's use Bitcoin. Yes, let's use any form of crypto coins. And therefore, it's then difficult then to track. So how are regulators adapting to these changes?
We are trying our best, and we are actually adapting, because you are spot on in saying that the criminals actually are changing tact. And that's why also regulators need to be versatile, they need to be dynamic for us to be able to do that. Even the banks are equally the same. And that is why we are trying to digitize ourselves, so that we are no longer depending on the manual register. So we've got a program that we would want to digitize, and so that we will be able to say, if we are your regulator, we've got to be able to see you. We can be able to see the activities. We've got to be able to see your funding, and not necessarily to control, but to just make sure that everything that you are doing is legit. So regulators, we are trying, and we are having a conversation as a regulator so that we can now even work together. I can be able to know what BRS are doing. They can be able to know what we are doing. Companies limited by guarantees, and also within government. Right now, we are also trying to see and bring the donors on board. There is a conversation with the Office of the Deputy President where we are trying to get to know what is called off-budget funding. Because there are our organizations go to embassies. They get funds from the embassies. They go to, and those embassies and donors, they will give them money, and they will record that they've given Kenya government a certain amount of money. Ministry of Treasury Finance, they will also be recording and say, because now they are not aware of that funding, and we are not aware, the figures that we attribute to a certain donor is different. Why? It's because the donor gave those money to an NPO directly. We are having a conversation where we will be asking the donors before they give money to NPOs. They will inquire from us, number one, if they are registered, so that we know they have given money to this organization. If I am the regulator, I'll be able to know, so that when they file their annual returns, for example, and when we do the sector report, we can be able to say this is the contribution of the sector to the Kenya development, and that will go a long way in terms of having the checks and balances, and you will not be able to benefit if you are not in that framework.
There is something that happened in the country, which is in February this year, where the country was grey listed, FATF grey listed.
Yes.
And that has put Kenya as one of an avenues that is highly susceptible to be misused by those who are financing terrorism and money laundering. Yeah. So being grey listed, what does that mean for the country in international space?
It means we are not going to be trusted. And I was telling the NGO sector, there are countries right now that, and their donors, that they are not very keen to fund us because of that grey listing, and that's what we are battling in right now. The SCRG process that I talked about is that we are required to report on quarterly basis on the measures that the country is putting in place to be able to monitor that. And grey listing is not a good thing. It's not, because it means all the donor countries are shrinking their they will be giving you a little money, say, put your house in order. And it's all the sectors, and it's affecting all the sectors, government and also the non-government. That's why we are in this process. Other countries are putting in place mechanisms, and they are removing from that grey list. About 2 weeks ago, Nigeria was removed, South Africa was removed, and I think the big economies in Africa right now, Kenya is the only one which is there. Although we were there before and we were removed, now they put us back. Yeah, so we are hopeful that the issues that the FATF group wanted us to address are being addressed. Like, one of the things that I had said is that we need to operationalize this act. Remember, the authority I'm heading was just NGO Coordination Board. One of the requirements was we operationalize, which this government has seen is operationalized it. Right now, we've just finished the regulations of operationalizing that. We are actually handing it over to Parliament. We took the regulations through the public participation, and all the sectors were involved. We had a validation last week at Mozambique, and all the NPO sectors gave it a thumbs up. Now we've given those. Now the mutual evaluation looks at those things. If the law is there, has it been operationalized? If it has been operationalized, do you have the tools that I was telling you about? So I am sure when we will go for the mutual evaluation, it's called the face-to-face mutual evaluation in January by FATF, they will be able to tick the what is called immediate outcome number 10, which covers the NPOs, because we have largely addressed those issues. What will be remaining, and the things that the other agencies are doing, is about the number of investigations that has been done, the number of recoveries by asset recovery, how many cases were prosecuted, were investigated and prosecuted, Those are the indicators that they use to say Kenya are doing very well.
So now,
and we are, I can assure you that we are doing very well, and hopefully when we do mutual evaluation in 2026, we are hopeful that Kenya may be removed from the grey list.
So pundits may argue that we are coming in albeit too late on this regulation, because one, we've been grey listed and the country has suffered greatly because of the terrorism financing, although it's a good effort and we do hope that to advance that. However, I want to look at the flip side of the regulation. There is always the concern and the fear of overreaching, because governments are known to use instruments or agencies such as yours, to curtail other activities in the society, in the community where these governments are domiciled, in this case Kenya, to try and curtail activities that may be coming out to do civic education to Kenyans that may cause an uprising against the same regime. So what are the safeguards for us as the public, even as you proceed, which we support, to establish the authority? What are the safeguards that when you overreach, we can say no?
I think our constitution, the Kenya constitution, is a safeguard. If you do a comparative analysis of what happens within our region, I think Kenyans, we are angels. Even what's happening with our neighborhood, we are doing very well. The freedom of speech in our country is good. The freedom to go to court. The courts are there, and they are doing an amazing job. The other oversights, including Parliament, before we take our regulation to Parliament will require something called the regulatory impact assessment. How does the regulations impact on those, which we've since carried out and we've put it. So those checks and balances are there. And I don't think where we have, the regulations are born from the Act. And our Act was actually largely driven. In fact, it was formed and it was a private members' bill, which was by the civil society, and we've not departed from there. Maybe so I want to give an assurance to the NPO sector, that government does not have any intention of gagging or impeding on the activities of NPOs, but rather these regulations and this act is an enabler for the sector to be able to get organized. Remember, the act is a continuation of the NGO Act of 1990. But now this is more advanced, and it is Kenyans who actually came up with it. Kenyans are very good in terms of coming up with rules that govern themselves. So I can tell you, the act is progressive, the regulations are good, and it was actually the civil society themselves actually went through it, close by close, And right now, they gave us a thumbs up that this is a working document. So it is not us as an authority who actually have been pushing for this, but it's a product of our collaboration and partnership together with the sector.
Well, I believe you'll be under so much scrutiny because we have the Land Act that has been amended, and Kenyans are really privy to that. So it will be interesting to see how that develops. But I wanted to make a follow-up question. You mentioned we are focused on financing of terrorism, but we have so many other agencies who come into the country and they advance other sorts of agendas that are not necessarily terror by nature. It could be like we've seen, or rather we've had, they call it human rights, but you'll hear the cases of LGBTQ, same-sex marriage, which could be contrary to our constitution and our cultural practices. Is that within your scope?
If there is an organization engaging in those activities, then that they are saying they will be focusing particular on that, then it will be within my scope. But if not, if they will register themselves as a society, then it will be under BRS. It will not be under myself. We have different regimes. It is only that that diversity, and also it is a mechanism. One of the checking mechanism is that where I am as an authority, I don't superintend everybody. There are people who are registered under BRS, some under companies limited by guarantee, and now myself, and there are also those ones who are under CBOs, under Ministry of Social Labor. So even having a diverse registration regimes in itself is a safeguard mechanism, so that we are not in one place and we're saying there's nothing that we can be able to do. So that one I can assure you that if indeed an organization engaging in that will be under my scope, then we'll be able to regulate.
We talk about terrorism, financing terrorism in the country. We talk about money laundering, and with Kenya being grey listed, something shows that we've not been doing something right. And with that then comes to speak about successes that we've seen, what it will take for us to get off that grey list. So what are some of the successes that you have seen, and how are we working towards ensuring that Kenyans are part of this conversation? Because where Kenyans are not involved, they will always be at the extreme end where they're being taken advantage of and they do not know about it. How are we involving Kenyans in this conversation in the spirit of public participation, not just about the organizations themselves, but Kenyans themselves, and successes as well that we can see? And when you find that I am being used to fund terrorism, what do you do? What happens next?
We are engaging in the different sectors I talked about. They are engaging stakeholders in within that particular spectrum. Me, myself, I've said I'm engaging with the civil society groups, NPOs, who are ordinary Kenyans. They are not part of government, The Law Society of Kenya are engaging the members of the public within their spectrum. The BRS are engaging Kenyans on their own again. So, and Kenyans are being given an opportunity to engage us in the several regulations and the laws that we are having. When you see the whistleblowers, the Witness Protection Agency, where Kenyans are coming out and say, we have identified something and we need protection for us to be able to flag this out. So I want to call upon all Kenyans in whatever sphere they are working on, to be aware that if we do not speak out about the fights that we are seeing, the final result is that it will affect us as a country. The issue of grey listing as it is, we are saying it does not only affect government, it affects every Kenyan. Every Kenyan. The other time when when the Kenya government, when we were saying our passport is prone to manipulation, when now government was putting in effort and to say we need to have a tamper-proof passport, for example, it was because if we didn't put up that security features and all that, and those mechanisms, every time you would go somewhere, someone like Okari, they would say, no, it's not a Kenyan, it might be a Nigerian, it's a Kenyan passport, you know. So what we are saying is that we need to be vigilant to guard our space. The government will protect, we are there to protect our space so that we ensure that Kenyans can be able to be free to engage in all activities that they would want to do, and then provided it does not now, whatever you do does not affect the security of another person. Yeah.
You earlier said, in reference to money laundering, some of these emerging threats are also coming through real estate, where you have a lot of boom in the real estate. And we've had guests here who've talked about actually how the money laundering trail is done. And you also alluded to the fact that you're also working closely with banks and you're having conversations with banks. And I'm thinking, a lot of this financial institutions, are they really doing a good KYC job? Because what we then tend to see, you hardly see somebody walking in giving a contractor gunia ya pesa. A bank has to be involved somewhere.
Yeah.
And I'm curious to then find out from you. Have we reduced some of these financial institutions, not all, to just tick boxing agencies where I'm bringing money, you're not questioning where it's coming from, you're not doing a due diligence, but provided you're bringing business to the bank, then you just tick the box and the exercise is complete. Therefore, then, it means it's easy for somebody to walk into some of these financial institutions and launder money and move this money to do any activity that they want.
I'm not a banker and I'm not speaking for the bank, but it may be true. There is a possibility. And that is why the Kenya Bankers Association, the CBK as a regulator, and all the banks are right into this conversation of regulations. You know, that is why ARA is there. You know, asset recovery. You know, it is a possibility. It is a possibility that can be able to happen. So, CBK as a regulator and all the banks are part of this conversation. All the investigators, all the investigating agencies in this country, DCI, ESCC, ODPP, are in this conversation. I think the only people now that we might need to have on are actually have not seen the judiciary being part of the conversation in the face-to-face that we had. But all the people I've mentioned are part and parcel of the National Steering Working Group. And also the coordinator, our coordinator actually is the FIU, the Financial Reporting Center, FRC in our case. Yeah. So all those people you mentioned are there. And that's why nowadays in Kenya, part of this is if you move 1 million shillings, 2 million shillings, you will hear that you've been told, were you expecting some money? Yes. From where? For what purpose? You know, provide that documentation. If currently you move millions of shillings in our banks, there are high chances that you will not get that money.
Dr.
without providing evidence, Dr.
There is a clear way how that money is being cleaned up. Let me just paint it for you.
Yeah.
We see, and I'll go straight into the works, the political class.
Yeah.
We see every day the political class walking around with millions and millions of shillings. We politicians have showed up for a certain public engagement. There is an NGO that is doing something. donation. 5 million shillings is there. Go do that with your job. And we talk about you cannot move 5 million shillings through the banks, but we can move 5 million shillings through activities supporting football tournaments here and there. And one sitting back would say that right there is how we are cleaning money. Just what is the authority doing to ensure that such movements, that such initiatives that is in clear plain sight are things that you handle, you address, that will help us get out of the grey list?
That's not within my purview, and I now realize why this is a hot city. And I wish you could be able to call some of the politicians that splash money around and ask them about that. But what we are talking about is that we have regulations and mechanisms in place, legit, and that's what we are looking at. But these other ones, I'll not be able to tell you that's money laundering or not. But you are the ones calling them. Call them and put them in the hot seat, and then for them to be able to defend themselves and say where they got the money and what's the reason.
You know, the reason why I'm bringing that is because you see,
and I'm not a politician myself.
When you talk about regulations and what needs to go to Parliament, you know, it is the same individuals that are seen walking around with huge sums of money that are expected to then pass regulations that will come to control this. So if they walk around with a suspect or a speck in their eye, perhaps there's a problem there that would make it difficult for your authority to fight anti-terrorism, financing and money laundering. Perhaps it's a conversation that needs to be extrapolated for everyone to be in this conversation. That is Dr. Laxmana Kipto, I beg your pardon, Laxmana Kiprop, who is a security expert, a development expert as well, who we've been having that conversation from PBO, and something that we need to talk about because terrorism financing and money laundering continues to affect the country. But even as we thank you for being part of the conversation, Okari, there is this plan.
Yes, you know, life comes in stages. So there's a point where you were in school, you wanted to pass exams, you finished that stage, then were looking for a job, you got a job, then started earning your salary, then you started saving your money either in a SACCO, in a bank somewhere, or in any investment. Then there's a point where you want to get married, you want to have children. All these are plans, and all these are just different stages of life. Then there'll be a day when you start thinking, like I am myself, thinking about retirement, and you're thinking, wait a minute, so all these people, human beings I brought to this world, what kind of legacy do I want to leave for them? And that's where I see a lion comes in. It has a so the thing is, wherever you are in life, you must have a plan, and what then I see a lion is coming in to do is helping you figure out how then do you consolidate all these plans, from savings in a money market fund to securing your family's future with insurance. All these are options, because planning ahead isn't just for some, it's for everyone. I see a lion helping you protect, grow and plan for life's every stage.
You know, when you talk about plan, the worst mistake anyone can ever do is fail to plan, because they say when you fail to plan, you plan to fail. And that is where our Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation, comes to a close today. Dennis Aseto, Dennis Okari and Josphat Kamanya. Tomorrow we do it the same way. Asanteni sana. Enjoy the rest of your viewing and listening. It is 10 a.m. Good morning.
Thank you.
The latest news from around the world. 94.4 Spice FM.
Good morning, this is the Newswire. I'm Edwin Lisamira. Survivors of the 1998 U.S. Embassy bombing in Nairobi are today expected to stage a peaceful protest in Nairobi as they renew their appeal for justice and compensation. Their expected march to Parliament Buildings, Office of the Prime Cabinet Secretary and the Executive Office of the President comes as U.S. Vice President D.J. Vance prepares for an official visit to Kenya later this month. In their recent petition to President Ruto and his U.S. counterpart Donald Trump, they lamented decades of neglect and urged Ruto to champion their cause and raise the issue during Vance's visit. They noted that while American victims were compensated under the